Virago. It is a liquid immune enhancement supplement featuring 23 potent nutraceuticals working synergistically to enhance your immune system against assaults. Trust the design that God gave you and strengthen your body's immune system with Virago, the ultimate immune enhancement cocktail. Order it online today. Visit myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. Use coupon code Jennings to save 30%. Myvirago.com. Coupon code Jennings saves you 30%.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
So the Democratic message for the 2026 midterm is, we don't love America. That's it. The message from the left is, as long as people that we don't like are allowed to win elections, we hate America. That's a heck of a thing to be running an election on. We hate America.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be humid with some sunshine and a high of 85. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies and humidity with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots towards dawn and a low of 70. Tomorrow will be partly sunny with a high of 85. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives and Amy Jacobson. Heard weekday mornings at 11 on AM 560, The Answer. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So as promised last week, after that sad little man took the fifth 111 times, the Senate Homeland Security Committee reconvened under the chairmanship of Rand Paul to move a contempt resolution against Tony Fauci, a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, and Rand Paul providing the explainer as to why this was happening.
8 days ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci sat before this committee in the witness chair under subpoena for conduct covered by the President Biden's full and unconditional pardon, reaching back to 2014. Dr. Fauci faced no risk of federal prosecution. All he had to do was tell the truth. More than 100 times, though, he refused. The chair ruled that Dr. Fauci's assertion of the Fifth Amendment privilege was unsupported in light of the pardon and the testimony he offered in his opening statement. The chair directed Anthony Fauci to answer. He refused again. That is what we are voting on today. Not his opinions, not his policies, not anything he said from a podium 6 years ago. We are voting on whether a witness who has received the benefit of a sweeping federal pardon can be ordered by this committee to answer questions and then defy that order without consequence. Documents tell only part of the story. Many of these questions can be answered only by Dr. Fauci. He answered none of them. There will be another pandemic. The time to determine which legislative reforms are necessary to ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated is now, not later. Holding a witness in contempt is a serious thing, and it should be rare. But the contempt power exists for precisely this circumstance. Oversight is not a courtesy this committee extends or a favor a former official grants us. It is a constitutional obligation. And when voluntary cooperation ends, Congress must be able to compel compliance with its lawful demands. That is Congress's compulsory instrument. A subpoena is not an invitation. A subpoena with no consequence is not a subpoena. It's a suggestion. Seeking the truth is not a witch hunt. Accountability is not vengeance. Accountability is what stands between the American people and a repeat of the mistakes and the very real consequences of the past.
Are you feeling somewhat gratified by this level of accountability? Probably not as much as anybody who I think has a proper and appropriate negative view of Fauci would want. But it is the pursuit of all this information, the diaries, now we have his phone too, and the forthcoming phone records, and something that is within the purview of Congress to do. You know, they're exercising the power they have, if you will, even if we wish there was greater exercise of said powers by said organs of accountability, to continue with Rand Paul's description, both during the pandemic and since. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. Trump was asked in the Oval Office about a potential prosecution of Tony Fauci, and here were his thoughts.
Well, you know, they prosecuted Peter Navarro and they prosecuted Steve Bannon, two very decent people, over something that essentially was never prosecuted before. And there are sort of telltale signs of similarity. And they went to jail for a number of months over something that I saw one of the analysts said they used to laugh at it in the Justice Department when something like that was referred. But Merrick Garland prosecuted two very decent people and sent them to jail. I wasn't president. I would have given him a pardon in 2 seconds, but I wasn't. This was after I left. They waited till after I left, and then they prosecuted these two people, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. So when you see that happen, you sort of say maybe he should. What he did is far more serious than a lot of crimes, frankly. But they prosecuted two people when nothing like that has ever taken place before.
And you'll recall the Supreme Court, without comment, vacated Steve Bannon's contempt of Congress charge. And Peter Navarro, is pursuing an appeal of his contempt of Congress conviction all the way to the Supreme Court. That's a pending matter. It's not clear that, despite what Josh Hawley said, and we talked about this last week, it's not clear where the Supreme Court will come down on whether or not Tony Fauci was compelled, because he was operating under that expansive pardon, to answer questions, that his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination was vitiated by the pardon. That's not clear, although I tend to think that it could be a case the Department of Justice wins, but that win being short-lived because the Supreme Court intervenes on behalf of Fauci and this issue of whether or not the Fifth Amendment right can be invoked. And this was the point that Andrew Weissman, now consider the source, Andrew Weissman, who was Bob Mueller's henchman in the Russian collusion witch hunt. On MS Now, you just have to hear it. You have to hear what the other side is saying in terms of understanding the nature of debate and how they're trying to run interference for Tony Fauci, and really somewhat a surprisingly aggressive way. Gary Peters, the senator from Michigan, on the Senate Homeland Security Committee, has been doing it. And again, this is not unexpected from Weissman, but it doesn't make the argument invalid.
Anthony Fauci was held in contempt by a committee in the United States Senate. There are a number of reasons why this is both lawless and wrong. One, Anthony Fauci asserted the Fifth Amendment, and a valid assertion of the Fifth Amendment cannot be contempt. Why did he have a valid Fifth Amendment? Even though he had received a pardon for some crimes, he did not receive a pardon for all potential crimes. And with this Department of Justice, there's every reason for him to have been concerned about what kind of prosecution would be conjured up. All you have to do is ask Jack Smith, James Comey, Jerome Powell, and I could go on and on. Also, it is really fundamentally lawless, against the rule of law, for the Senate of all places to misunderstand the scientific process. If a scientist like Dr. Fauci, when confronting a new disease, has a view of time A and changes as the data changes to revise their view, that is not a sign of lying. That is not a sign of doing something corrupt. That is the sign of being a good scientist, where you follow the data. So this is something that is both lawless and anti-science. So what's going to happen now? The referral of Dr. Fauci to the Department of Justice could lead the Department of Justice to seek a criminal charge of contempt. But in my estimation, that will never, ever succeed, because asserting a valid Fifth Amendment is not and cannot be contempt of Congress. It is asserting a valid constitutional right. But at the end of the day, what we are seeing is another instance of the rule of law being denigrated, eviscerated, now not just by the White House, but with the complicity of the United States Senate. If you like this analysis, you can hear more of it by tuning in to Main Justice with Mary McCord and me.
Well, Bill be there, Andrew. So the point is, and that Holly made this point too, the argument is that he was in no legal jeopardy with respect to the areas of inquiry, the questions that were being asked that were all covered by the pardon that went from 2014 to Biden's last day in office. But that's very, and by the way, the potential punishment here is up to a year in prison, $1,000 fine, just so we know what we're talking about. But, you know, you can make the argument on a couple of fronts that he was facing legal jeopardy in beginning to answer the questions. And as we talked about, once you invoke the Fifth, you can't do it selectively. You either invoke it across the board or you don't invoke it. But again, I'm going to answer some questions. I'm going to invoke the Fifth on others. So to the extent that he starts answering questions and there is a fishing expedition that isn't covered by the pardon, either pre-2014, which seemed unlikely given the statutes of limitations on these sorts of charges, or more likely since 25, the end date of the time the pardon covers, that he could say something that had he theretofore not been realized that he did after 2025, maybe having to do with preservation of records, since there's a lot of suggestion that he was provided advice and counsel on how to delete emails and so forth. That's number one. And number two, you also have this specter of state-level investigations, criminal investigations, not just Florida, a handful of states, and they've been sort of ongoing, picked up in pace and profile, of course, after last week's testimony. But so he potentially, it's not clear to me, like, where you really have him on state-level charges. First of all, jurisdiction is an issue. But regardless, he could say, look, I don't know, but I know there are criminal investigations into me, and my pardon doesn't cover state level. It only covers federal level criminal activity. And so his lawyer would argue that he has exposure there as well. So that's why I think you could potentially prosecute him. But it seems to me, as Weissman kept saying, the legitimate use of his Fifth Amendment privilege, that what you probably would find is the Supreme Court would basically hold that that was a legitimate instance. That's what I suspect legally. But this is so much more about politics than it is legality, political reckoning, political accountability, professional accountability. And I think a lot of professional accountability has been visited upon Tony Fauci over the last week. And that's the good news. And you know how I know? Because his wife gave the bird to the reporters assembled outside of his house after yesterday's action by the Senate Homeland Security Committee. So they're not enjoying themselves in their retirement with their healthy government pensions like they thought they might. So there's something to be said for that. Now let's check the headlines with Mike Scott.
5:32 this morning. Heavy fog from Lansing all the way down to Rensselaer, Indiana, where visibility in northwest Indiana down to 0 in spots. In the QC Kinetics newsroom, an investigation is underway after remains on more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's South Side. Authorities say Chicago police, Illinois officials, and Cook County medical examiners were sent to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after state regulators found decomposing bodies kept in deplorable conditions.
I can't imagine what the family members are going through. And they trusted the funeral home to put their loved ones away, and they in there decomposed. That's terrible.
Regulators have suspended the funeral director's license, and the ME's office is working with authorities to identify bodies and notify families. Federal immigration officials are threatening to file charges against Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart. Cook County Sheriff's Office says federal immigration enforcement officials sent 4 subpoenas last month asking them to turn over detainees being held at the Cook County Jail. They also sent letters threatening Dart with charges if he fails to comply with these subpoenas. Former longtime Cook County Chief Judge Tim Evans has a new job. Evans has been appointed to serve as a justice for the 1st District Appellate Court. He's 83 years old and replaces Justice Terrence Lavin, who retired in March. Evans led the Cook County Judiciary for 24 years before losing an election. This morning, an athletic trainer at a DeKalb County school is accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a student. Authorities say the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office received a tip on June 10 about an employee at Indian Creek High School in Shabana. On Wednesday, Christina Payton turned herself in to sheriff's officials on multiple charges, including distribution of harmful material to a minor and official misconduct. State lawmakers will have a new item on their agenda when they convene for the fall veto session in November, trying to find an extra $150 million for the Chicago Public Schools. Now, House Speaker Chris Welch says he never promised that money.
The $150 million, I don't know where that number come from. I made a commitment to fight for funding.
Meantime, Mayor Brandon Johnson defended Welch against sexual assault claims against the handling of sexual assault claims against a former state representative. Johnson this week says right now he's trusting Welch's judgment.
That more transparency has been brought to light of any elected leader that has to be held to a righteous standard, quite frankly.
But many do not think Welch properly handled complaints against former Democrat representative from Plainfield, Harry Benton. One of them, Representative John Cabello, says there were problems before the Inspector General's report on Benton was released.
When the person came forward, didn't do anything for several weeks. Where are the people that were demanding that Speaker Madigan gets thrown out, now not doing the same thing with Speaker Welch?
And State Representative Fred Crespo this week, who was removed from the Democrat caucus by Welch last year, said the Speaker's decision to back CPS without consulting other state leaders makes the House look completely unserious.
It's not a good look for us. I just don't see how the governor's office or the Senate can take the House seriously, especially after he made the statement for CPS.
Crespo also pointed to articles from the Wednesday Journal of Oak Park and River Forests, which have detailed years of what Crespo says are questionable actions by Welch. Chicago sports, Red Sox walk off the White Sox 12-11 in 13 innings, capping what had to be one of the most entertaining baseball games of the regular season. Chase Mydroth slugged a pair of 2-run home runs for Chicago, putting one on Lansdowne Street over the Green Monster. Maybe we can put that Garrett Crochet trade to rest now, but the Sox have dropped 4 of 5 and host Cleveland tonight. Cubs claim their makeup game over the Blue Jays in walk-off fashion. Pete Crow Armstrong scored on a throwing error in the 11th to secure a 3-2 win. The news, a service of Audible. When you start listening to books on Audible, travel may seem like less of an annoyance and more of an opportunity for another chapter. Audible, stories that speak to you. New members can start listening with a 30-day free trial, audible.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, and in 2 minutes, a check of the AccuWeather forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Virago and by State Farm Insurance Agent Anthony DeGrotto.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again, not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family owned with integrity since 1981.
Do you see yourself traveling, working part-time, or moving somewhere warmer when you retire? Hi, I'm Nolan Webster, your local Chicagoland Edward Jones financial advisor, and I want to help make your retirement goals a reality. Let's talk about where you are, where you want to be, and how we can get you there. Together, we can plan for the expected and make sure you're ready for the unexpected. Call me at 224-801-6107. That's 224-801-6107. Or visit edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You need to be tuning into the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, the radio companion to the Amazon best-selling book, Success Blueprint, How to Build the Retirement You Deserve. Each week, Michael shares strategies designed to help reduce market risk through income-generating investments that can provide steady returns. Because if you can avoid a big loss, you don't need to take big risks. Catch the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, Saturday mornings at 10, right here on AM 560 The Answer.
Looking for a place that feels like home the moment you walk through the door? Then make your way to Shannon's Deli in the heart of downtown Lombard. For more than 25 years, this woman-owned local favorite has been serving up incredible made-to-order sandwiches, homemade soups, crisp salads, and delicious catering that's earned a loyal following throughout DuPage County. Every meal is made with care because at Shannon's, you're not just another customer, you're family. And when the weather's beautiful, grab your lunch or dinner and head upstairs to their rooftop patio. It's the perfect place to relax with friends, enjoy great food, and experience one of downtown Lombard's hidden gems. And Shannon's Deli is just 35 feet from the Metra train station. Plus, when you're ready for dinner, live entertainment, or a classic Irish pub experience, visit their sister restaurant, Shannon's Irish Pub in Glen Ellen, just 2 blocks from the Metra station. Visit shannonsdeli.net and shannonsirishpub.info. That's shannonsdeli.net and shannonsirishpub.info.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect humid conditions with intervals of sunshine and a high of 85. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas towards dawn and a low of 70. Tomorrow will bring partly sunny skies and a high of 85. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
Sports and politics and sports and politics and sports and politics and intersection. Arrogance and ignorance, arrogance, ignorance, and arrogance and ignorance. Intersection.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, this edition of Sports and Politics, I can't believe how much time I'm spending on the WNBA. I'm really not trying to. I really am not. And I suppose it's inevitable when you have... a league that has a certain LGBTQIA2S++++ coven within it. And so this issue of boys playing girls' sports or men playing women's basketball, it just doesn't go away easily because everybody gets asked about it once Sophie Cunningham or somebody else makes the obvious statement about men and women in sports. I mean, do we really have to make these arguments? I love it when people say, men have a physical advantage over women in sports, generally in life, and that not necessarily translates into sports. It's like that is a profound, important, but controversial statement. It is none of those things. And yet it persists because Sophie Cunningham says something and she poses for a photo with Riley Gaines and Jennifer Say, and all of a sudden, the coaches in the league that may be more aligned with the LGBTQIA2S++++ identitarians need to, virtue signal to their cadre over this issue, and so they make statements, as you heard from even Sophie Cunningham's coach on the Indiana Fever, I guess they're called, the Seattle Storm, and this other player now. I mean, now I know more than 3 players in the WNBA too, which sickens me. Believe me, Gabby Williams, she's completely on board with playing against dudes. Careful what you wish for, Gabby.
I think it's trans rights right now is our new battle. That's what I think I was saying, that like the battles have changed. Oh, yes. Like our intentions have been the same, but now the environment has changed. We see trans people's rights being, stripped away from them. There's a lot of discourse around trans athletes and what they can compete in. I would welcome a trans athlete on my team or against my team anytime.
Preferably on my team.
I don't think it's a problem in the world. It's just another way to kind of attack trans people. We've seen players like Layshia Clarendon who stepped into that forefront and have been brave enough and courageous enough to kind of step up. So I guess that's the next battle that we have to fight as athletes.
Brave, stepping up, battles we have to fight. There's somebody who went to college. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. Well, Clay Travis is stepping up to make Gabby Williams' dreams come true, that is. He's talking about, this is obviously being absurd to demonstrate absurdity, but, right, an expansion inclusion team in the WNBA out of Nashville called the Nashville Balls that would feature feature dudes playing women's basketball. And he has his eye, as maybe does the NBA, if Gabby Williams had her way, on this French dude pretending to be a woman and playing basketball across the pond there. Zule Teitar, 6'3", 200 pounds, 34 years old. Had quite a banner year. I looked it up. 20-20 guy. 20 points a game, 20 rebounds. One of the best seasons ever turned in the women's basketball league across the pond there. Yeah, I bet. 34, too. Not exactly in his prime. But you really don't need to be when you're 6'3" and 200 pounds and a dude playing against women, and that's part of the problem.
Look at your screen. A French trans player says if the WNBA gives them a chance to play in the league, they would not turn down an offer.
Yeah. Maybe see if Wemby wants to play at both leagues, too, while we're at it. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. And now just folding in, because now this has to be revisited again in all of women's sports. Even though Caitlin Clark continues to play Pontius Pilate on the topic. Pretty disappointing if you're a Caitlin Clark fan, which I want to be, but she's making it very difficult. But in women's tennis, now this is another haven for leftist politics, as we've talked about before. But tennis's number one female player, Aryna Sabalenka, she's pretty clear on the topic, because over in women's tennis, they're going to institute a gender test. So look, this is going the direction of sanity, finally, but not without fits and starts.
Hi. The WTA recently announced that the players will take a one-time gender test. How do you feel about that? The first pro league to go in that direction.
I think it's really important to keep the fairness in our tour, and it's obvious that biologically, right, the men are way stronger than women, so I feel like it would be not really fair for the woman to compete against biological men. So I believe it took them a little while to make this decision, and I support it. But for me, I'm focusing on myself, on my goals, whatever it takes. If they want to test us all, I'm happy to do that. It's pretty fair, and let's keep it that way.
Yeah, pretty simple. Bill, Northwest Side, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
She's going to love to have a transgender athlete on her team, but how much is she going to love it when she doesn't have a job?
Well, yeah. Thanks for the call, Bill. Paul in New Lenox.
Hey, Dan, thanks for taking my call. My sentiments are with you about women's basketball, but if they really want to increase their viewership, recruit Dennis Rodman, put a wig on him. He likes doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then maybe the viewership will go up, and guess what? They could get what they want.
Sure. Thanks for the call. Sure. Who wouldn't want to see a 60-year-old Dennis Rodman playing basketball against girls in a wedding dress? It would be great for ratings. Coco Gauff, just going back to tennis, American star. She's been, openly critical of Trump before, as some of these other identitarian adult athletes. And she still kind of is. She wants to have it both ways. She's kind of doing the Caitlin Clark.
Hi, Coco. The WTA recently said it's going to give gender tests to the players on tour. What's your impression of that? What do you feel about it? And what did the WTA do to prepare you guys for what's to come on that?
Yeah. As far as, I guess, with that, I know it's been something that's been talked about a while, but I've talked to a couple other players, and a lot of them didn't find out until the press release. So I do think that's something that could have been more transparent amongst players across the tour. As far as that, I understand the reasoning behind it. I do think that this kind of conversation has created a lot of animosity towards the trans community, which I'm not really a big fan of, but I also understand the need to, the biological difference and the need to protect that and preserve that. So I think it's a conversation that is very nuanced. And it creates causes, or I need to have a nuanced answer. So yes, I guess kind of agree with trying to protect the fairness in women's sports, but I also do not like the attack that it is creating people who don't really care but just want to use this as a reason to attack the trans community. So I'm not really a big fan of that either. So I don't really know how to answer really this question.
I really don't know.
That people aren't going to spin it. But as far as where I stand, I definitely support the trans community, but I also support the need of creating fairness in sport too.
Yeah. I'm for things that are popular, and I'm against things that are unpopular. We get it. Well said. Yeah. Attacking the trans community. Right. Remember the left's verbiage. To disagree is to attack. Nobody's attacking anybody. Just say guys don't belong playing against girls. That's it. Boys don't belong playing against, men and women, guys and girls. You get it. That's just not right in sports. That's it. Nobody's being attacked. Just, biological reality in the interests of the beauty of sport and free and fair competition. Attacking. This is our battle. Did you ever hear the story about Serena and Venus Williams? Serena and Venus Williams, back in their heyday, coming up in the late 90s. In 1998, they said they could beat any man ranked outside the top 200 in men's tennis. So a little-known player named Karsten Brash, who was ranked 203rd at the time, took them up on the challenge. This was a guy, as I read the story, who is not known to be, a real court rat. Didn't really practice very much. Was not a workout junkie. Just, I guess, came up playing tennis, and he was a good tennis player. After a night of drinking and smoking with no practice, he beat Serena 6-1 and Venus 6-2 in straight sets. So those are the two of the greatest female tennis players of all time. Serena may be the greatest. And they barely made this person you've never heard of on the men's tour, barely made him sweat. And you remember, too, Serena Williams was honest about this back in the day before the politics changed and she had to be dishonest about it. She's like, I can't, as good as I am, as a female player, I can't beat anybody. I'd get killed. I'd lose 6-0 to anybody in the top 50, I think is what she said. Something to that effect, because they just hit the ball so much harder and, have those physical advantages that we all understand to be the truth. So anyway, there's that. Steve in Roselle.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you want to see respectable basketball at the level of the WNBA, you don't have to go to the Wintrust Arena. You can just go to a good high school team, and because they play at about the level of the Elite Eight in the boys' high school in Illinois, and they play 2 feet below the rim. It's that's where they are.
Thanks for the call, Steve. I don't think they're Elite Eight. I don't think WNBA would beat an Elite Eight team. Elite Eight high school team, I'm saying. I don't think they would. I just watched it the other day. Again, too much time on the WNBA. I can see the point, but some X account of like sports lowlights had a compendium of Angel Reese. The header was Angel Reese goes off like she was on fire, and then it's about 4 minutes of Angel Reese missing layup after layup after layup and padding her stats with me bounds. And anything outside of 8 feet, not only was she laying construction on the rim, this was not close. I don't know what her percentage from the field is, but it's not a good-looking shot. And she how tall is Reese? 6'2", 6'3"? An Elite Eight basketball team at the high school level in the state of Illinois, their front line is going to be probably bigger than anybody in the WNBA. And probably by a wide margin. They would crush any WNBA team. George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan, I know you've had a lot of time to contemplate this, but how brave of you to come out as a WNBA fan. We salute you.
Thank you very much, George. I'm glad somebody recognizes my courage. It's not easy. Speaking of Angel Reese, they Barbieized Angel Reese. She's got a Barbie doll now. Isn't that exciting? I know, more WNBA factoids you probably don't care about, but Barbie dolls, that if you got young girls at home, I don't know, you may have a Sophie girl in the house and an Angel Reese also in the house. Maybe that's going to be the new rivalry. Anyway, this is Angel Reese on her Barbie-ification. But something she said, typically, again, identitarian adult, not exactly true.
Hey, Barbie. Hey. How does it feel to be the first person with Atlanta ties ever in history to have a Barbie doll?
It feels amazing. To be at first always means a lot, especially there's a lot of women that have come before me that have walked so I can run. And so many of the legends of this game have reached out to me and just pouring into me. And it really just means a lot to me. And Atlanta has sold out everywhere. I can't go anywhere to get the doll. And it just shows how much they love me and have embraced me here.
And follow up to that, what were some of the dolls you played with when you were little?
Honestly, I didn't have a lot of dolls because I didn't have dolls that really looked like me much. And that's why I kind of really wanted to make sure this was super intentional because now that they have a doll that looks like you and nails and hair, but also you can be a killer on the court as well. So that was something that was important for me when getting the doll.
Yeah, she's so intentional. Angel Reese was born in 2002. The first Black Barbie debuted in 1980. Just point of order. Didn't have dolls that look like me. You know, she's oppressed. She's a victim. Blah, blah, blah. Bull jive. By the way, didn't they have, like, also, before she was born, didn't they have, like, FloJo dolls, too, when she had that Olympic run and all sorts of... It's just nonsense coming out of the WNBA, generally speaking, with the exception of Sophie, basically.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer. News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Another congressman primaried out. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Andy Ogles, a Trump-backed Republican in Tennessee, now the 9th House lawmaker to lose a primary this year.
Congressman Andy Ogles lost the GOP primary in the 5th Congressional District to Charlie Hatcher. Ogles was backed by President Trump, and Hatcher was endorsed by Governor Bill Lee, but Ogles faced a number of controversies, mainly related to his social media posts, including about how Muslims don't belong in American society.
That's Fox's Madeline Rivera. The Democrat Hatcher faces in November is Chaz Mulder, the mayor of Columbia, Tennessee. In the state's governor's race, Senator Marsha Blackburn won the Republican primary and will take on Democrat Jerry Green. The winner will be Tennessee's first female governor. A second Republican senator is going to vote against acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Lisa Murkowski joins GOP Senator Susan Collins, who also plans to join Democrats opposing Blanche's confirmation to be full-time AG. If one more Republican is a no in the vote that could come today, Blanche would be rejected. A student went on the shooting spree at a school in Thailand, killing at least 5 people, wounding a dozen others and more.
The shooting happened at a high school on the outskirts of Thailand's capital, Bangkok. The suspected shooter, a 14-year-old boy who was a student at the school, is dead after turning the gun on himself. He's said to have killed his grandparents before going to Debsirin Nontaburi School to carry out the attack.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. Iran and Oman keep trying to work out an agreement that may or may not be backed by the U.S. on getting shipping flowing freely through the Strait of Hormuz, as President Trump also insists this is Iran's last chance to work out a deal to denuclearize.
I think we're doing fine. It could be soon.
The deal has not been finalized, and the president says the U.S. Navy is continuing to enforce the blockade of Iranian ports. Trump cautioning that shipping risks remain as Iran could still deploy mines or carry out drone attacks.
That's Chandler Painter. America's listening to Fox. 6:02.
A very humid 69 degrees and a fog advisory, especially for northwest Indiana. We're down near Rensselaer. Visibilities are close to zero this morning. In our QC Kinetics newsroom, an investigation is underway after remains on more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's southeast side. Authorities say the Chicago Police, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, and Illinois investigators were sent to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after state regulators found decomposing bodies being kept in deplorable conditions.
I can't imagine what the family members are going through. And they trusted the funeral home to put their loved ones away, and they in there decomposed. That's terrible.
Regulators have suspended the funeral director's license. The ME's office working with authorities to identify the bodies and notify families. The family of a woman killed in a Fox River boat crash has filed a wrongful death lawsuit. Magdalena Jablonska of Des Plaines was decapitated in the collision. Her fiancé, Alan Telmini, survived and is still recovering.
I heard loud engines, and I looked to the left, Maggie, and then she was gone. I relived that moment every day, a few times.
Richard Stevenson has been charged with reckless homicide and aggravated driving under the influence, causing death in the crash. A Joliet woman who left the scene of a hit-and-run crash that claimed the lives of a couple from Plainfield will spend 7 years in prison. A friend of that family killed Lisa Stewart.
And they were such special people. They meant so much to so many, and it rips my heart out, that feeling of just that they don't get that chance, and she does, and it really creates some anger inside, too.
Mary Beth Mosqueda pleaded guilty to 2 counts of failure to report an accident. She'd been jailed on several occasions before in Will County on unrelated charges like aggravated battery to a police officer and a drug possession charge. And our condolences to the family of John DeMore, who played for the Bears in 1957 and 1959. He passed away this week. The Riverside resident, believed to be the oldest living Chicago Bear until his passing at the age of 92. He was born and raised in Riverside. DeMore played college football at Northwestern before playing offensive line for the Bears. He was also a Marine. Red Sox walk off the White Sox 12-11 in 13. Chase Meidroth slugging a pair of 2-run home runs in that loss. Cleveland tonight for the White Sox. Cubs claim their makeup game with the Blue Jays in dramatic walk-off fashion. Pete Crow Armstrong scoring on a throwing error. Cubs now winners of 4 straight visit KC. 6:05 is our time. We'll have a check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Hey AM 560 listeners, Jeff checking in again from JeffBuysYourHouse.com. What I learned serving our great nation in the military is that every mission is unique and success starts with listening. For nearly 20 years, our veteran-led house buying team has taken the time to understand what matters most to each homeowner we serve. Every home has a story, and every seller has different needs. Whether you want a quick closing or need extra time to find your next place, we customize our approach around what works best for you. That's how we've earned hundreds of 5-star Google reviews and an A+ rating with the BBB, by putting relationships first. No repairs needed, no cleanout required, and you pick the closing date that works best for your schedule. At JeffBuysYourHouse.com, we're here to help you through the entire transition, not just the transaction. Are you ready to work with a local team that takes the time to understand your home selling needs? Sell your house to the trusted source by calling us today at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or JeffBuysYourHouse.com.
When it comes to supplements, 2 things matter most. 1, that it works, and 2, you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, I want to let my audience do it. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I'd like you to hear a few of their stories. Jim wrote in, he said he ran out of Relief Factor twice. Both times his ache and stiffness and pain came back. Once he restarted, he said, I felt better again. As Jim puts it, you know something's working when you run out of it. Jim, I can tell you that's exactly, I didn't run out of it. I just thought, my wife made me take it. I'm like, it's not going to work. And then I started feeling better, and I was like, well, I did my 3 weeks. I'm feeling better, but it's just me. I'm in a good spot. I stopped taking it, and it all came rushing back. That's how I appreciate what Relief Factor does, and it could change your life. They make it easy to find out if you'll be the next person telling us Relief Factor helped you tackle your daily aches and pain. 3 weeks for just $17.76. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. Get the 3-week quick start, $17.76. 1-800-4RELIEF. ReliefFactor.com. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found Tax Relief Advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic, could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did, they gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8924. 800-575-8924. That's 800-575-8924.
6:08 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Report of an accident this morning in Bensonville, Bussey Road and Mark Street, causing some delays. Also have delays showing up on Lakeshore Drive northbound between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood. Dan Ryan delays in the locals inbound between 43rd and 18th. Traffic is a service of the AM 560 mobile app. Put it on your smartphone when you download the app at 560theanswer.com/mobile. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now we'll get a check of the morning forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect humid conditions with intervals of sunshine and a high of 85. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas towards dawn and a low of 70. Tomorrow will bring partly sunny skies and a high of 85. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Appreciate the welcome backs I've received on text message. You know, I wasn't like gone for 3 days. I mean, good grief. I'm nice to be missed, though. I got in at like 12:30 this morning, a flight that was supposed to get in at 7 p.m. yesterday evening. But I was flying into O'Hare, so it's sort of like government. I always, at least a 6-hour window, just to be safe. Like government being off by a factor of 10 when it comes to taxes and spending. That's sort of the latitude you have to build into the conversation. But it reminded me of something. And I maybe try to get Sean Duffy on the program or somebody from DOT, because this really is interesting. AirHelp is a flight tracking and travel support app. And it looked at data from last month, July, to identify which airports saw the most and least flight disruptions. Flight disruption is cancellation, long delay, lost or damaged luggage. Flight disruption. So the worst airports with at least 10,000 flights in July of last month. The worst incidents of flight disruption, not surprising, Newark, 80% of the flights disrupted. 80! O'Hare was second at 76%. San Francisco International, 75%. Fort Lauderdale, interesting, 75%. New Orleans, Louis Armstrong Airport, 74%. Houston, 72%. But here's the thing that's So that, I guess that's not surprising, although the percentage is rather high. So you have a 3 in 4 chance that you're going to have something from annoyance to more substantial occur just traveling to these places or from these places. But the best airports for July, again, based on 10,000 flights, Salt Lake City, JFK, Minneapolis, St. Paul, 50%. So, I mean, it's substantial, but the best airports in terms of the incidence of flight disruption still have half the flights being disrupted. A cancellation, a delay, lost or damaged luggage. Something, I mean, does that speak to something being wrong with the system? I mean, I'm not an aviation sector expert, but that just seems like a high incidence of problems, even at the best run airports. Yeah, I don't know. I just share that little data point. Something else I wanted to share to close the loop and transition to our topic here. Close the loop on the conversation we were having at the end of last hour about men playing girls' sports. Yes, it persists. Catholic Vote put out something. I mean, it's so frustrating. Republicans can't even get this issue right. This no-brainer. Catholic Vote, which is the organization founded by Brian Birch, who is now the ambassador to the Vatican for the Trump administration. So he is on leave, but Catholic Vote's work still persists, conservative Catholic organization. Warning senators that it will score a vote for the current version of the Protect College Sports Act against them because the legislation could endanger state protections for women's and girls' sports. Catholic Vote's government affairs dude wrote letters to lawmakers urging them to reject the current form of the Protect College Sports Act because, as he wrote, for some inexplicable reason, the sponsors of this bill refused to listen to reason, instead seeking to garner Democrat support for their bill by throwing women under the bus. Great praise for Senators Hawley, Missouri, Banks, Indiana, Tuberville, Alabama, for leading the charge opposing this egregious bill. So they want preemption in there to protect state laws, which is in 24 states, that say boys can't play girls' sports. That's it. But you would think the Republican Party on this issue, which President Trump just talked about almost as much as he talked about the SAVE Act, which is another one of these 80% issues, you'd think you'd be able to simply and elegantly craft legislation to achieve the desired objective and move the thing, since you have majorities in both chambers, right? And now you can have people confused saying, "Oh, I voted for the Protect College Sports Act," or "I support the Protect College Sports Act because we're protecting women in sports," even as you have to read the substance of it and get into the weeds to understand, per this distillation from Catholic Vote, we got a problem here. The problems here. And speaking of the SAVE Act, documents released Thursday morning by the White House Government Transparency Task Force detail a massive data breach, an investigation by the FBI, a suspect who admitted the crime, and a years-long attempt by the FBI to get someone to prosecute, only to close the case due to lack of prosecutor interest. I mean, 2020 was the most secure election in our lifetimes. You remember, you were supposed to rinse and repeat that phrase with the same regularity as 2 weeks to slow the spread. About 633,000 records, voter records, were exposed. Data breach. About 930, this is over at the Federalist, the reporting on this. About 930 of the 633,000 records included sensitive non-public voter information, such as domestic violence victimization. Although an administration official says no ballots were accessed or changed and no registrations were changed, it nonetheless highlights a major vulnerability in the voting system, and in a state that was particularly impactful, you'll remember, in 2020, Arizona, and in the most populous county in Arizona, where we have these lingering problems, called Maricopa. But listen to the denial, the lack of prosecutor interest. This is part of it. You know, we're talking about reckoning for Fauci, and we had that CIA contractor whistleblower testify before Rand Paul's committee a few weeks back, talking about Fauci's influence on the CIA, and thus the CIA essentially following the lead of Tony Fauci to play politics with public health. Well, here again, the first denial to prosecute the crime came from the U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona, June 12th of 2021, about 6 months into the Biden administration. The Arizona Attorney General, Maricopa County DA, and Pinal County District Attorney also declined to prosecute the hacker. The suspect said he did not share the data, said he was 100% accountable for his actions, and was deeply regretful. He apologized and commented that he has to deal with the consequences of his actions. So again, they know who this guy is. They know what he did. He confessed. But, you know, an apology when it comes to compromising the integrity of election, if you're a man or woman of the left, I mean, that's sufficient. We don't have to go overboard and hold him accountable under the law, which is basically the culture at FBI and DOJ under the victor in the 2020 election, wasn't it? According to one official, others ignored the evidence of the data breach, including Mr. Most secure election in U.S. history, profiled by 60 Minutes, celebrated. Remember him? Former Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA Director Chris Krebs. He was briefed on the issue with a document that places the breach in the, quote, highest concern category, where it was, quote, repeatedly mentioned, unquote, but Krebs never spoke about it. In fact, not only did he not speak about it, he did a Tony Fauci. He knew one thing privately and said the exact opposite publicly. The hacker, again, according to these documents disclosed yesterday, the hacker used a script to extract data through the web page a voter would use to fill out his own data, finding zero security on the front end, enabling him to access the location where the data was stored. He apparently acted alone, this hacker, and the FBI expended resources looking into bank records and communications to see if he was working with any domestic or foreign actors, and determined that he was not. Oh, well, sure, and since there's a lack of prosecutorial interest and a politicized Department of Justice and FBI, you know, we'll just take you guys at your word, of course. And the fact that we have to get this years after the fact because, you know, Trump was victorious and some of his personnel has been able to dig up, you know, burn bags full of documents that otherwise the previous regime never thought would see the light of day, including Tony Fauci's Hello Kitty diary. In 2023, after numerous failed attempts by the FBI to find someone to prosecute the hacker, how hard did you try, Chris Wray? Bring him back. See if he wants to invoke his Fifth Amendment right. After numerous failed attempts by the FBI to find someone to prosecute the hacker, the case was closed. The White House has requested information about the prosecutors who declined to pursue the case, so this is pending. And just more on the topic, particularly since there was such enthusiasm, a combination of enthusiasm for imprisoning President Trump by these bad actors, heads of agencies like Jim Comey at FBI, and just dismissiveness when it came to any suggestion that those preeminent policymakers of the last regime were compromised in any way, had any sort of legal jeopardy or concern about operating outside the bounds of the law. For example, this is Jim Comey back in 2024, about the prospect of putting Trump in jail. It's very easy. No, we could imprison him successfully. It's not a problem.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population. But it's obviously doable.
Yeah, he's got it all sussed out. Don't worry about it. Just let's move ahead. FBI secretly opened probe alleging Trump fired Comey because he was a Russian asset. Newly declassified memos. John Solomon over at Just the News reporting. The FBI opened a criminal probe specifically targeting Trump in May of 2017, alleging the newly elected president may have been acting as a Russian agent when he fired Jim Comey. Though the Bureau's own evidence, you'll recall from the Russian collusion hoax, witch hunt, the Bureau's own evidence overwhelmingly showed at the time there was no collusion with the Kremlin. But, you fired Jim Comey, American patriot, Elliot Ness. Obviously, you have to be in liege with Putin or some other nefarious enemy of America because he's Captain America. There has to be something skullduggerous afoot. Internal FBI memos, newly declassified by the White House, show the investigation, codenamed Oxford Comma, was launched in the immediate aftermath of Comey's May 9th, 2017 firing, which came about 4 months later than it should have. The communication opening the probe. The FBI is opening a full investigation based on articulable factual basis that reasonably indicates that President Donald J. Trump may be or has been wittingly or unwittingly involved in activities for or on behalf of the government of the Russian Federation, which may constitute violations of federal criminal law or threats to the national security of the United States. The goal of the investigation is to determine if President Trump is or was directed by, controlled by, and or coordinate activities with the Russian Federation in a manner constituting a threat to the national security of the United States and or a violation of federal criminal statutes. And we've got the double wide and the Supermax ready for him. That wasn't stated. It's just implied. And all of your favorite names from a bygone era are back. The memo was written by the FBI's Counterintelligence Division and approved by then FBI General Counsel James Baker, and then Assistant Director of Counterintel William Priestap. Both the acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, you can now enjoy his stylings at MS Now, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein were, enemy inside the perimeter, DOJ, were advised that the probe had been launched according to the memos. They knew. A subsequent investigation by John Durham, you'll remember, released by the Biden Justice Department in 2023, concluded there was no basis for the FBI to even open the original Crossfire Hurricane investigation into alleged Trump-Russia collusion, much less this Oxford Comma matter, which was closed April 9th of 2019, a few weeks after Mueller's probe was sunset with the final report and no charges against Trump. So they pursued parallel tracks with the hopes of having something that they could use, however illegitimately, to put Trump in that double-wide cell that Jim Comey was dreaming about, and it didn't happen. But it wasn't because of a lack of effort, that's for sure. Now, do you want to talk about the SAVE Act? Do you want to talk about election integrity, generally speaking? Do you want to talk about accountability at DOJ and FBI? The weaponization that we talk so much about, That's sort of been tamped down now because they're trying to flip the script and decry weaponization by the Trump administration of these agencies. And as we said at the time, this was all coming out before we've gotten loads more since Trump won re-election. Said at the time, you are setting a precedent that will boomerang on you and by extension this country. You're taking this country down a very dangerous and dismal path. And that's exactly what they did. And the evidence continues to pile up against all the people we said at the time were doing it. And the D.C. press corps protected. And they're still protecting, still flacking for to this day.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Temperatures are rising, and so are concerns about inflation, market volatility, and taxes. Revisit your financial plan this summer. VestGen Wealth Partners work with individuals to develop personalized plans that help navigate changing conditions with confidence. Visit GetRetiredStayRetired.com to learn more.
Advisory services offered through VestGen Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Private Client Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Private Client Services and VestGen Advisors, LLC are unaffiliated entities. Any information discussed does not constitute investment advice. VestGen Advisors and Private Client Services do not offer tax legal advice.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1796, George Washington made one of the most consequential decisions in American history. He chose not to seek a third term as president. So why does that matter? Because America was not built on permanent rulers. It was built on ordered liberty. Faith teaches that authority is a stewardship, not a possession. Leaders are accountable to God for how they use power. And why does that still matter today? Because republics survive when leaders respect limits and citizens defend them. Washington's lesson still stands. A republic is preserved when power has limits, and public service remains a duty to God and country, not a path to personal rule.
This is Hugh Hewitt for townhall.com. Reliable reports from a variety of sources confirm President Trump had ordered a major escalation of combat with Iran for this past weekend, only to call it off Saturday night. President Trump knows the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps lies and that they cheat. There's no reason to believe that they'll not lie and cheat again. It is who they have always been. Since the revolution in 1979, the Iranian regime's negotiators have fooled both Presidents Carter and Obama in comprehensive fashion. Other presidents to some degree, but they have never fooled Donald Trump, until this past weekend at least. Can we still pull a win out against the terrorist regime in Tehran? Yes. But only the president can do that, not our allies, not his advisors, certainly not the legacy media. President Trump has been surprising and indeed startling his critics for nearly a dozen years in politics. I'm hoping he has at least one more huge surprise in store. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again. Not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family-owned with integrity since 1981.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 6:36, have we reached peak marijuana yet? Kevin Sabat, CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Is there one? Joins us to discuss. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
6:32 in Chicago. Watch out for the fog this morning, especially for our friends and listeners in northwest Indiana. Down near Rensselaer, your visibility is near zero this morning. In the QC Kinetics newsroom, there's an investigation underway after remains on more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's southeast side. Authorities say Chicago police, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, and Illinois officials sent investigators to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after state regulators found decomposing bodies kept in deplorable conditions.
I can't imagine what the family members are going through. And they trusted the funeral home to put their loved ones away, and they in there decomposed. That's terrible.
Regulators have suspended the funeral director's license. A student has shot several people at a high school outside Bangkok, Thailand, killing at least 5, wounding several others. Authorities say the gunman also appeared to have separately killed his 2 grandparents on Friday. Senator Marsha Blackburn came out on top in the GOP primary race for Tennessee governor, defeating Congressman John Rose and a state representative.
We need safe communities. You want to make certain we support law enforcement, that we're cracking down on crime, that we're treating criminals like criminals, and law enforcement like the heroes that they are.
Meanwhile, U.S. Representative Andy Ogles has lost his GOP primary in Tennessee to a former longtime state official, Charlie Hatcher. The Trump administration wants to cut regulations on the federal Head Start program that serves low-income kids. Federal officials want to reduce regulations governing the program with proposed changes that could eliminate class size limits, teacher qualification requirements, and other long-standing standards. The proposals would go through a federal review process and would not take effect until 2027. A Homer Glen man is accused of breaking into a Darien home and injuring the homeowner before leading police on a high-speed chase. Michael LaHaye faces multiple charges, including home invasion. Prosecutors say LaHaye broke into a house on Tuesday in the 1400 block of Sequoia Lane, injuring the owner. Officers then chased him into Homer Glen, 11 miles away, before he was taken into custody. And for the first time in more than 90 years, this August, Aurora's Marmion Academy will welcome female students to its classroom. Change marks a major departure for the formerly all-male college prep school. Even though the school will be co-ed, new students will study separately for their freshman and sophomore years. Red Sox walk off the White Sox 12-11-13. Chase Meidroth had a pair of 2-run home runs for the White Sox, who hosts Cleveland next. And the Cubs claim their makeup game over the Blue Jays in walk-off fashion. Pete Crow Armstrong scoring on a throwing error in the 11th in a 3-2 win. The news service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges. Join today, 560theanswer.com/join. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Gas prices in Chicago are riding like a roller coaster. They go up, they come down. Well, they come down a little bit, but then they go back up again. AM 560 wants to help ease your pain at the pump. Listen each weekday afternoon at 12:30 and 5:30 for the lowest gas prices around Chicagoland. And if you see a low gas price, let us know. Just text the word gas to 312-642-5600, followed by the price and location, and we'll share it right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Finding great employees is hard. Keeping them is even harder. If you're still trying to attract top talent with just a competitive salary, a 401k match, and health insurance, you're blending in with everyone else. Offer something most employers don't. A split dollar life insurance plan is an executive benefit that can help you recruit, reward, and retain your most valuable employees. Whether you're hiring a key executive, a physician, a top salesperson, or other key employees, a split dollar arrangement can help your offer stand out while encouraging long-term retention. If your company is looking for a recruiting edge, let's have a conversation. Visit 560retirement.com or call 847-474-3888. That's 560retirement.com or 847-474-3888. AE Wealth Management does not provide life insurance, tax, or legal advice. Insurance offered by Scott Tucker Solutions, Inc., AE Wealth Management, and Scott Tucker Solutions are not affiliated companies.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com, to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
The TV tide is turning, and millions of Americans are tuning to Salem News Channel. For breaking news, common sense analysis, and the conservative voices leading the conversation, SNC delivers the stories that matter most. Watch Scott Jennings, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, and many others tackling the issues facing our nation. Stream free on Pluto TV, Samsung TV, the Roku channel, and more. Salem News Channel. The news you want, the perspective you trust.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
6:38 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Most of you must be up at Cottage. Not much going on this morning. Accident Bussey Road and Mark Street in Bensonville this morning. Otherwise, quick tap of the brakes on Lakeshore Drive at Bryn Mawr. Route 53 jams up in the construction zone northbound between Algonquin and Kirchhoff. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now we'll get a check of the morning forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Fog lifting this morning. Otherwise, a humid and partly sunny day and a high of 86.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Craig Bolanos, powered by VestGen Wealth Partners, Sunday morning at 10 on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SHAUN-Fest.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. We've been talking about this on this program since politicians in Illinois were leading the state down the primrose path of, it's just medical marijuana. People with glaucoma have some empathy, compassion to full-on marijuana legalization so that, these low-life impresarios who also corner the gaming market here by buying politicians could enrich themselves more by also moving drugs. That's what we're focused on in Illinois, is turning the state into one reliant on a mob economy. Gambling, drugs, abortions. We're just waiting for the legalization of prostitution, and we'll be there. But just focus on dope for a minute. It was several years ago, a few years before COVID, that Alex Berenson, the former New York Times reporter, came out with that book, Tell Your Children the Truth About Marijuana, Violence, Mental Illness. And I've shared stories on this program, too, when we've taken up the topic. A good friend of mine's son had a psychotic break from substantial continued use of marijuana. Thankfully, he's on the other side of that now, but it was a mess, to say the least. A couple of issues that we've talked about, but just to refresh everybody's recollection. The weed that people smoked at Woodstock generally had about 3 to 5% THC. Now many shops sell weed products that contain as much as 90% THC. Jonathan Avery is a doctor and the vice chair of addiction psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medicine, says he's seeing more people land in the emergency room after accidentally overdosing on high-potency THC products, particularly edibles, where people can underestimate how much they've taken. He adds that the drug is particularly dangerous for teens because even low-level use is linked to an increased risk of developing psychiatric disorders and doing poorly in school. The addiction and mental health issue. Among people who use marijuana daily, about 20 to 30% will develop cannabis use disorder. It's a big percentage, a big number. The disorder is characterized by craving marijuana, being able to cut down on use. You need more to get the same effect. Then you feel off without it. Sure, classic signs of addiction. Well, many people can use cannabis to cope with anxiety. Many studies now show that the drug makes anxiety worse. It's also associated with increased odds of developing anxiety problems and more severe symptoms in those with anxiety and mood disorders. In addition, for adolescents, regularly using cannabis during teen years is also associated with disruption in memory and learning. One study found that frequent cannabis users who started taking it during adolescence lost several IQ points between the ages of 13 and 38. So is it a good idea to reclassify it down, as the Trump administration has, and to continue to stay silent in the face of the propaganda that this is like a medicine as opposed to a toxin? I mean, alcohol is too, but that's no defense to the promotion, gone from tolerance to legalization to promotion of marijuana use. That's what's actually happening, if we're being honest. For more on all this, pleased to be joined by Kevin Sabet, CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. He was a drug policy advisor in the Clinton W. and Obama administrations. Kevin, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So, I guess we're now at a place where more Americans use marijuana every day than Americans than there are Americans who drink every day. And so there has to be some assessment of the societal impact, particularly given some of the studies that are suggesting these problems I mentioned with the strength of the percentage of cannabis that is THC, the power, the potency of the drug, as well as its impact down the line, as if COVID wasn't bad enough, on young people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's really a slow motion disaster, and it's actually speeding up faster than even the experts thought, because today's marijuana has been genetically bred to be so much stronger than it used to be. It's a completely different drug from what people are used to from even as late as the 90s or 2000s. It's been genetically bred. So the THC, which is what binds to your receptors in your brain and body, which in other words gets you high, that's why you feel high, that level has just changed by an order of magnitude. It used to be 2 to 3%. It can be up to 99.9% in these waxes and vapes, cartridges that are being sold openly in Illinois and in a couple other dozen states in defiance of federal law. So it's a new industry. It's all about money. That's what it's all about. It's addiction for profit. Mm-hmm. Of course, we've seen the movie before, right, with the tobacco, big pharma, big alcohol. Why we would want to repeat it, if we can help it, is beyond me. Like you said, people say, what about alcohol? That's like saying, my headlights are broken. What about breaking my taillights just to be consistent? It makes no sense. But there is a difference with alcohol. Alcohol doesn't, 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol do not make you psychotic. And that's the other thing about marijuana, is that it is actually increasing your psychosis, schizophrenia, all of these things that we're trying to obviously reduce that are skyrocketing in our society. So it's a really bad idea. Unfortunately, President Trump is listening to 1 or 2 advisors who have a money stake in this, and it's really bad.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because maybe some electorates are catching on the effort to legalize recreational marijuana in places like Florida. And it's not the only one. There's been about 4 states recently, referendum, that have gone down despite obviously heavy spending from the marijuana lobby and the politicians that they own or purchase. So it seems like it's maybe through personal experience or just being in states that are overrun with dispensaries and saying, I don't want that to be where I live. Maybe there's starting to be a sea change there.
You're completely right. There is a reversal right now. So when you lose the New York Times, you know your movement's in trouble. The New York Times came out 3-4 months ago saying that, oops, yeah, you're right. America has a marijuana problem. And it said that, we used to argue this was kind of harmless and not a big deal. But when we look at the numbers, we're getting very worried. The fact you have more people using this mind-altering substance than smoking now. Smoking is bad for you. Of course, no one should do it. It doesn't change your mind. It doesn't make you psychotic and schizophrenic. There's a huge difference. And so the New York Times said that. And now, like you said, Florida has rejected it. In fact, 7 out of the last 10 states to vote on this have rejected it. And even in a state like Massachusetts, which isn't exactly Texas, they are voting to repeal the sales part of legalization because it's had such a bad impact. I don't know if it'll succeed, but the fact that it's even on the ballot, you have 100,000 people in the state that have brought this to the ballot shows you that I think people are actually beginning to say, you know what? Maybe I didn't want people to go to jail for marijuana. Not that they ever did. That was a huge myth. But okay, maybe I didn't want that to happen in theory. But I don't really want a pot shop on every corner. I don't want to smell weed every single time I'm in a city. That's all you smell with your kids when you're walking around going to the museums. So I think there is becoming a bit of a change.
I got a text. If marijuana is stronger today, wouldn't it stand to reason people consume less? Well, that's not how addiction works, is it?
Well, that would be if people are logical. I mean, sure, wouldn't it stand to reason that a lot of people don't do no, that's not happening. I wish it was happening, but when you look at the latest data, people are using way more than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. We have, again, more daily users of weed, high-potency weed, than drinkers and cigarette smokers for the first time in our history. So I wish that they would titrate their dose. I wish people were logical. Addiction and drugs have nothing to do with logic. Otherwise, nobody would be doing any of it. It has to do with your brain being the selfish organ and your brain saying, I really like that. Despite it being bad for me, I really love it. And it wants more of it. And the industry knows it.
And, the first state, I think it was the first state to legalize statewide was Colorado, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember, again, this is now pre-COVID. We're sort of revisiting this more frequently now, that they were starting to put together enough data to make educated commentary about the impact on society. And it's also on the crime side of it, frankly. And I'm talking about like driving under the influence. And so in terms of preventable deaths, you had obviously the .08 Mothers Against Drug Driving, the .08 initiative that changed laws in a lot of states in terms of taking drunk driving more seriously. And perhaps there's evidence now starting to paint a picture that there needs to be more serious law enforcement action taken on with respect to marijuana and illegal activity.
Oh yeah, no, the underground market and crime have skyrocketed in places with legal marijuana. They said that they would get rid of crime if they legalized it. But the reality is, first of all, the underground market loves legalization. They get a pass. They can work with impunity. They can undercut the legal price. They don't pay the taxes. Mm-hmm. Plenty of people go to the black market still. So that's thriving. And then crime around pot shops, you look at study after study, also shows increases. So we haven't seen this huge reduction in, again, we were told we were going to see a huge reduction in crime. None of that's happened.
And with respect to the physical impacts, because that seems to be where the most emphasis should be placed. What do we know about the incidence of psychotic breaks, serious health consequences from repeated use, particularly from a young age?
Well, we know a few things. Number one, we know that you're probably going to get a lot dumber because your IQ will go down between 5 and 8 points. And that is a permanent IQ loss that is very difficult to regain. We know that you have a 4 to 6 times more likelihood of a psychotic break. And when you have psychotic breaks, that's really scary. I mean, you kind of just say that word like it's nothing. That is a very scary thing. It's a total disassociation with reality that sometimes causes violence. It can cause long-term schizophrenia if it's happening over and over again. So that is not a good thing. And then we're looking at things like heart risk, cardiovascular, lungs, of course, especially if you're smoking something. So, these are all the things that I would be worrying about. And then some very acute things that can really affect you in the moment. There was a huge article yesterday by the Associated Press about what's called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. This is uncontrollable vomiting that sends thousands of people to the ER every year, and the only relief for it is taking a scalding hot shower if you're lucky. If you basically almost burn your body, you can start getting relief from this horrible feeling of constant vomiting. Again, this is not the stuff that makes you giggle and fall asleep in your dorm room. This is the sort of disconnect that politicians have with this issue. And they also think it's popular when, of course, it's gotten actually less popular, especially among the GOP, but really among everybody and independents too. But they don't know. I don't think, J.B. Pritzker, the reality of marijuana is probably, I hope, from 30 years ago. And it's some of his adults that are 60 to 70 years old who take a gummy once a week and fall asleep. That is not the reality of today's marijuana that we are legalizing and promoting.
Yeah, and J.B. Pritzker never did get over the munchies. That's pretty obvious. The other issue with this is, unlike say opioids, there are no medications for marijuana addiction to assist with getting clean effectively, and the drug stays in your system a lot longer than alcohol does too. So it has lingering effects in a way that even moderate use of alcohol doesn't.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, when we say it stays in your system, it doesn't just mean it shows up on a drug test and it means nothing. It means that it's actually affecting you. So when we do driving simulation studies, you see people who are driving and flying planes, whatever, they're affected the next day as well. And so, it's not just when they're using, when they feel it. So that's a huge difference. And yeah, there are it's not like opioids where if you have an addiction, we can give you some kind of medication. We can't do that with this. So, and so many people are in denial too that this is even an issue. So yeah, the treatment is huge. There's more kids in treatment for marijuana than any other drug, including alcohol, which again, unprecedented until we had this era of legalization.
If clawing back to being illegal is not possible or plausible in some states, I mean, are there other recommendations you have? Would you like to see the federal government step in and regulate the THC potency? Are there other things that could be done to make it more innocuous than it is?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in theory, there are. The problem is this industry doesn't let us do anything. So in theory, absolutely, let's have huge warning labels, advertising restrictions. Let's have THC content restrictions. We don't need to be having 90% THC products. Let's not have the pot shop on every corner. Let's limit it near kids' spaces. I mean, there's all kinds of things we'd love to do. We've tried to do in various states. The industry has grown. They are all about money. They're all about any industry, which is their bottom line. They don't like a lot of regulation. I mean, that's obviously any business. When you legitimize it, that's what they want. So it's very hard for that to happen. That's why in places like Massachusetts, residents have said enough is enough. We're going to repeal the sales part of it. Doesn't mean we want to criminalize adults who use privately occasionally in their own home with no harm to others. But that's very different than this mass commercialization. So there are things in theory, but in practice, they're very difficult.
Is that like, I know you released a documentary film, THC Inc., earlier in the year, and I wonder what kind of response you get from the industry, or what their what their effort to respond to some of these studies that you were mentioning is. Is it that sort of thing where they use straw man arguments like you want to arrest, my 70-year-old dad who's having an edible in the privacy of his own home or something like that? Do they try to do those? Is that their tack or what's their tack?
Yeah. Yeah, they often use, sort of heartstrings, hey, the veteran needs it for PTSD, even though it increases the risk of PTSD symptoms, according to Yale research, not decreases. Or they say, this is about seizures in kids. Listen, if there's a medication based on the compounds in this drug that are helpful for people, great. I have no problem with it. Put it through the FDA, get it in pharmacies. We don't need to have dispensaries. We don't need to have a 19-year-old with a GED who's stoned out of his mind telling you what to give your 5-year-old with seizures. I mean, that makes zero sense. So treat it like any other medicine. That's fine. Regulate it properly. No one has an issue. But they use these kinds of arguments. But I got to be honest with you, I've been doing this since I was 14 years old. So more than 30 years I've been talking about this issue. And, it used to be like debating, earnest people, libertarians even, or hey, we don't want people going to. It's totally changed. And it's become these are guys in suits that have MBAs from top universities, and they don't even debate anymore. They're just out making their money like any other person that wants to make money. They kind of avoid the political discussion of it. They leave that to a few activists, and they laugh all the way to the bank.
Kevin Sabet, CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana and formerly a drug policy advisor in the Clinton, W., and Obama administrations. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It was really a pleasure to have them. Thanks also for plugging the film THC Inc. It's going to be free on YouTube in a few weeks. It's on Documentary Plus now for anyone to watch. I appreciate it.
Okay, great. The film again, THC Inc. And Kevin, join us on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's nomination is on thinner ice. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A second Republican Senator, Lisa Murkowski, comes out against Blanche's confirmation to be full-time AG, joining GOP Senator Susan Collins, who, like Democrats, is also a no in the vote that could come today.
Murkowski says, quote, the country needs an attorney general who will check the worst impulses of this administration. I hope Mr. Blanche is able to achieve that if confirmed, but I simply do not have confidence that will be the case. If another Republican decides to vote against Blanche, it will kill his nomination.
Fox's Chanley Painter, a Trump-backed congressman's lost a primary in Tennessee. Andy Ogles lost to Republican challenger Charlie Hatcher. Senator Marsha Blackburn won the GOP primary for governor.
We absolutely have to unite as a party and defeat the Democrats.
Blackburn faces Democrat Jerry Green in November. President Trump may go back to the Supreme Court with new executive orders on birthright citizenship that could get challenged after the justices rejected his earlier ones, attempting to not allow babies born in the U.S. to parents here illegally from becoming citizens.
A very, very unfortunate decision.
The new executive order applies to children born of diplomatic staff working on behalf of another government while in the U.S. The 14th Amendment does not confer automatic citizenship to families of of ambassadors, and this new order expands that category to other non-citizen employees.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich. The order also addresses so-called birth tourism, restricting visas to foreigners coming here to have babies. A judge has hit Meta with a $567 million fine after the Facebook and Instagram owner lost a trial in New Mexico.
This is on top of the $375 million in civil penalties that Meta was ordered to cough up after it lost a child exploitation trial in New Mexico in March. A jury had found the social media giant misled customers about the safety of its platforms and essentially failed to protect kids from online solicitation.
That's Madeline Rivera. America's listening to Fox News.
7:02, 69 degrees. Skies are clear, but fog hanging around. And for our friends and listeners in northwest Indiana, some spots down near Rensselaer are seeing zero visibility this morning, but that fog is beginning to lift. In our QC Kinetics newsroom, an investigation continues today after remains of more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's South Side. Authorities say Chicago police, the Cook County ME's office, and Illinois investigators were sent to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after state regulators found decomposing bodies kept in deplorable conditions.
I can't imagine what the family members are going through. And they trusted the funeral home to put their loved ones away, and they in there decomposed. That's terrible.
Regulators have suspended the funeral director's license. Federal immigration officials are threatening to file charges against Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart. Cook County Sheriff's Office says federal immigration enforcement officials sent 4 subpoenas last month asking them to turn over detainees being held at the Cook County Jail. Along with that, they send letters threatening Dart with charges if he fails to comply with the subpoenas. In other news this morning, a former longtime Cook County Chief Judge, Tim Evans, is beginning a new job today. Evans, appointed to serve as a justice for the 1st District Appellate Court. The 83-year-old is replacing Justice Terrence Lavin, who retired in March. Evans led the Cook County Judiciary for 24 years before losing an election to current Chief Judge Charles Beach. Chicago sports. Red Sox walk off the White Sox 12-11 in 13 innings, capping off one of the most entertaining baseball games of the regular season so far. Chase Mydroff slugged a pair of 2-run home runs for the Southsiders, putting one on Lansdowne Street over the Green Monster. Sox have dropped 4 of 5, though, and host Cleveland tonight. Cubs claimed their makeup game over the Blue Jays in walk-off fashion. Pete Crow Armstrong scored on a throwing error in the 11th, securing a 3-2 win, and Kansas City is next. The news, a service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges. Join today, 560theanswer.com/join. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN-Fest. Sponsored in part by LeavingIL.com and by Unique Wooden Flags.
You know that feeling when you call your insurance company and you know that you're getting put into queue? Nobody wants to go through that, specifically Tommy and TJ Iaquinta with Class A Insurance. They're a father and son team built right here in Chicago's southwest suburbs on one idea: treat people like family. See, because they're independent, they're not stuck in pushing one company policy on you, one company rates on you. They shop the best carriers in the country, names you'd recognize, and find coverage that actually fits your life, your home, your car, even your boat and motorcycle. That's why they've been named one of the top 25 home insurance agencies in Chicago. 2 generations, 1 agency. And clients that stick with them for years. When something happens and claims happen, Tommy or TJ is the one who picks up the phone and walks you through the process themselves. If you're paying for a policy you don't understand from a company you never talk to, it's simple. Head to 560insurance.com. That's 560insurance.com. Get a free quote in minutes at 560insurance.com.
When it comes to supplements, two things matter most. One, that it works. And two, you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, I want to let my audience do it. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I'd like you to hear a few of their stories. Jim wrote in, he said he ran out of Relief Factor twice. Both times his ache and stiffness and pain came back. Once he restarted, he said, I felt better again. As Jim puts it, you know something's working when you run out of it. Jim, I can tell you that's exactly, I didn't run out of it. I just thought, my wife made me take it. I'm like, it's not going to work. And then I started feeling better, and I was like, well, I did my 3 weeks. I'm feeling better, but it's just me. I'm in a good spot. I stopped taking it, and it all came rushing back. That's how I appreciate what Relief Factor does, and it could change your life. They make it easy to find out if you'll be the next person telling us Relief Factor helped you tackle your daily aches and pain. 3 weeks for just $17.76. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. Get the 3-week quick start, $17.76. 1-800-4RELIEF. ReliefFactor.com. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us.
Fight or flight. In Illinois, you've got both options. You can stay and fight, engage in local races, work to change things. Or you can vote with your feet. At leavingil.com, we help you build a smart exit plan so you know where to go, when to go, and how to do it right. Take our quick exit readiness assessment. Go to leavingil.com. That's leavingil.com. Or call 224-800-6979.
7:07. Let's get an update on the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time, a service of Blindster.com. Accident in Lombard, North Avenue and Swift Road. Addison, report of an accident. Lake Street, right at I-355 this morning. Bishop Ford jamming up. Inbound Cottage Grove into the Ryan merge. Ryan slows up on the inbound side, purging up through 18th. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. And up next, we'll check the morning forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect humid conditions with intervals of sunshine and a high of 85. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas towards dawn and a low of 70. Tomorrow will bring partly sunny skies and a high of 85. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and the DSA continues in its ascendancy after Abdul al-Sharia won that Senate primary in Michigan. Interesting, just in terms of the distribution of the vote. 13 of the top 15 counties in terms of percentage of college-degreed voters in Michigan, 13 of the 15, al-Sharia lost. Excuse me, 13 of the 15, al-Sharia won. Of the 15 counties that have the lowest share of college-degreed voters in Michigan, he went 0 for 15. It calls to mind something C.S. Lewis wrote in The Hideous Strength. Why, you fool, it's the educated readers who can be gulled. All our difficulty comes with the others. When did you meet a workman who believes the papers? He takes it for granted that they're all propaganda and skips the leading articles. He buys his paper for the football results and the little paragraphs about girls falling out of windows and corpses found in Mayfair flats. He is our problem. We have to recondition him. But the educated public, the people who read the highbrow weeklies, don't need reconditioning. They're all right. They're all right already. They'll believe anything. And nowhere does that get more codified than on a college campus. And I would say these days, but these days have been going on for the better part of 3 generations or more. Right. Ideas so dumb only an academic could believe them. That's where we're at, but it's no longer confined to the campus politics, not when you're talking about governor's races and Senate races. President Trump in Vegas this week had something to say about El Sayed, or El Sharia, as I prefer to impose that moniker on him.
Abdul El Sayed, lovely gentleman. He's a man of hate. And now he's going around saying, no, I love everybody. He doesn't love everybody. Put him in office. You're going to find out what he loves. He doesn't love Israel. He doesn't love Jewish people. He hates them. He hates them with a passion that burns in his heart, and there's not a frickin' thing he can do about it. There's not a thing he can do about it because he hates them.
Well, I mean, he could do something about it, but he's not going to, as has been made clear throughout his candidacy. Even recently, when he was on with Klingon Collins, that Dylan Mulvaney doppelganger, at least to hear President Trump describe her at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Anywho, this is he's polished, so you actually have to listen and attach meaning to his rap. He's a little bit more skilled than some of these other identitarian DSA types. But asked about foreign aid, asked about supporting the U.S. supporting the defensive dome.
Can you clarify for us what your position is on funding for Israel if you do become a U.S. Senator? Are you opposed to all funding for Israel, period, military funding?
I'm opposed to unconditional military aid for any country. That is Israel, yes, but that's also Egypt, where my family immigrated from. That's Pakistan, that's Saudi Arabia, that's UAE. And that's not because of a focus on what's happening anywhere except for a focus on what's happening here. We've got communities in my state where the median income is $14,000, and I believe they have a right to their tax dollars. I also believe in international law and upholding international law, and there are Leahy laws against dealing arms to countries who are engaged in human rights abuses. And I don't want to fund a foreign military that does genocide, apartheid, or has taken us to a war we don't need to fight. I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Jewish Israelis and Palestinians alike. I believe our responsibility, though, more than anything else, is to use our tax money here in Michigan to provide health care in Michigan, and schools in Michigan, and roads in Michigan, rather than to send it to a foreign government that might use it in the form of bombs and tanks to destroy infrastructure and schools and hospitals there.
Some people might hear that and say, well, does he support, funding defensive systems like the Iron Dome in Israel? Do you?
I don't believe that there's really a difference between offensive or defensive weapons. And I also don't believe it's my responsibility to buy defensive weapons for a foreign government when our kids are defenseless against schools that have been underfunded for a very, very long time. My responsibility as the next senator from Michigan is children in Michigan, rather than thinking about what's in the interest of a foreign government.
Okay, so that's a yes, that you are against funding to things like the Iron Dome.
I am against it in large part because I just don't understand why anybody thinks it's the right thing to do to send our tax dollars abroad to fund foreign militaries when our own kids barely get to go to schools that are functional.
Yeah. This guy who would nationalize all sorts of industries is a real penny pincher when it comes to foreign aid. Bull jive. Please stop. What a joke. And hopefully it's clear that his real view on foreign aid is strictly from a place of loathing Israel, as President Trump said, and as far as I can tell, Jewish people generally, and loathing America, since he said we deserve 9/11. There's that. When he refers, without naming Israel, but he's naming Israel, when he refers to them as an apartheid state committing genocide, there should no such thing as unconditional aid. Our aid is not unconditional. It's conditioned on the fact that Israel is an ally. You see? And then at the end, talking about the Iron Dome and a defense against Islamist attacks from regimes that wanted to see Israel wiped off the face of the earth. And then I'm concerned about defenseless children in Michigan school, in our underfunded Michigan schools. I mean, come on. I'm giving him too much credit when I say he's polished, but it's just, by comparison. At least he's not having to reverse course in terms of whether or not Thanksgiving is a holiday that should be celebrated in America, like Miss Hong up in Wisconsin, and she's on the ballot this coming Tuesday. Looks like we're going to see another DSA victory.
She's also facing growing questions about past controversial comments, including when she said she wanted to cancel Thanksgiving because, in her view, it was essentially racist. That's that post from 2020. But now,
I don't want to cancel it. I actually love it. We bring, it's kind of in-laws and family members and their in-laws, and it's a big event. I'm going to be real. I'm kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to holidays in general.
Yeah, it's just curmudgeonly. Just like Al Sharia is a penny pincher, right? I think it should be canceled because it's racist. No, I actually love it. No, I'm not sure what I think about it.
What do you have against Halloween?
I just don't. It's kind of. I don't have anything against it. I just don't feel the need to have to participate, and it's fine for kids. This is not a I dislike. I'm not a super fun person.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll get her views on Arbor Day and Easter and all the rest of the holidays, I'm sure, between now and Tuesday. This is quite a crew they're putting together. But I wouldn't underestimate the threat they pose in terms of being victorious. Noah Rothman is a senior writer at National Review and author of Blood and Progress, A Century of Left-Wing Violence in America. Noah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So Al Sayed, or Al Sharia, the candidate in Michigan against a former, FBI, DNI patriot, really. I think it's fair to call Mike Rogers that. It's a pretty stark contrast. One hopes that Michiganders feel the same.
Yeah, look, the whole slate that Republicans voted for in the primary is a pretty solid cast of Republicans who are not really that controversial. Many of them have pre-Trump pedigrees, and they present a dramatic contrast to El Sayed. But as you demonstrated with that clip, they got to be very careful with this. He is not a careless campaigner. He picks his words well. Mm-hmm. He fires off a blizzard of bull. That makes it very hard to refute individually the things that he says. But he's a true believer. This guy is not going to moderate his views on Israel because he doesn't think the Jewish state should exist. It's not that he doesn't like foreign aid. He knows enough about this to know that our aid is not conditional. The reason why we give Israel the aid that we do is because we give Egypt the aid that we do. This was a condition of the Camp David Accords in the Carter eras. He knows all this. Mm-hmm. But you can't get him on the facts. If you were to push him on the facts, he would move away from it. What you've got to do is, a few good men, this guy. You got to get him to say, yeah, I ordered the code red. He really does believe this stuff. And if you press him enough, he will concede that what he wants is to isolate the state of Israel, because the state of Israel is a uniquely malicious force in American politics. It consumes his head in ways that it doesn't for just about every other voter, including half of the Democratic primary electorate that voted against him. You just got to demonstrate that his priorities are not Michigan's priorities. And that's easier said than done.
Well, I mean, there is the guilt by association game, too, where it's appropriate. And here it's appropriate. I mean, he's choosing to campaign with, for example, Hassan Piker. So to the extent he tries to just minimize him as a streamer now, I mean, it's still a choice he's made. And one would like to know, for example, is he as enamored with the Hezbollah flag as Hassan Piker and things like that. I just wonder if you think that the focus on him being a purveyor of hate and really sort of intemperance in the direction, particularly of Jewish people, but I would say Christians too, We deserve 9/11. Is that the approach that you think has the most currency to make this about him, as opposed to Mike Rogers being a proxy for Trump and the election or referendum on Trump?
Well, I tell you what a lot of Democrats do. Democrats in the orbit of the establishment of this party believe that if he were to jettison Piker, that a lot of this stuff would go away. And I don't know if you can actually make him do that. It would be the prudent thing for El Sayed to do. But if he were to attempt to divorce himself from Piker, he would be divorcing himself from his own views. And, to El Sayed's credit, he's a very principled guy. His principle is anti-American, it's anti-Western, and I don't think he's going to be able to distance himself from Hassan Piker because he really wants to be an ascendant figure. He wants to shift the ideological pole in the Democratic Party away from a conventional view of the United States as a force for good on the world stage. He doesn't believe it is.
And
it should retreat.
Well, right, and Hong, Francesca Hong, is a less capable version of the same thing. I mean, she was campaigning with Piker and Ilhan Omar. That's not an approach to say I'm going for center mass in the state of Wisconsin. So they must. I mean, a combination of ideological commitment. And maybe they think that the play in the midterms is whoever has the most animated base, even of animated radicals, wins, counting on some lethargy among Trump voters. And this is the path to actual electoral victory. Maybe there is an electoral component to this as well.
And there will be. And if Mike Rogers says, listen, we can't have a guy who keeps the company that you keep. El Sayed turns right around and says, well, let's talk about the company you keep, Trump.
Right.
And that's not an ineffective tactic in a swing state in a year where progressives are going to do very well. It's maybe quite effective. El Sayed wants to talk about everything other than his actual views. He's going to want to talk about nationalizing the healthcare industry with Medicare for all. He's going to want to talk about eliminating border enforcement in this country, tax rates and extracting wealth from the millionaires and the billionaires. Don't let him do it. Don't let him do it. You've got to demonstrate that what he wants is to reorient the entire American foreign policy away from the post-war status quo because he thinks America is evil. And if you prod him enough, you'll get there. He won't disguise his views. He'll couch his views. He'll make them more palatable to most people without saying exactly what it is he believes. You've got to get him to say what it is he believes. And what he believes is an assault on Western civilization. It is an attack on the American civic compact that we've all understood it in our entire lives. It's really that serious. So Republicans have to treat this race like an existential threat. The Democratic Party, after his victory, is going to be a much more Islamist party. And that is as threatening to the American fabric as anything I can imagine. Mm-hmm. You don't want a Democratic Party that looks like that because they will win elections. And they will win elections behind a platform that is anti-American.
Well, the imperative, it sounds to me, is at least in part to appeal to those patriotic, blue-collar, non-college educated Democrats in those 15 counties where El Sayed lost in the primary. Appeal to their sense of I believe in America, and America's a great place, and America's even if I don't like Trump or whatever, that's got to be part of it, because you have to turn those voters out and put them in Mike Rogers' column in order to win Michigan.
And these DSAers, they also get away with the notion that they're the compassionate ones, right? That they are oozing with just affection for their fellow man in ways that their critics are not. Why they want to cut off funding for the Iron Dome is very simple. They want more Israeli civilians to die. AOC has said this explicitly in her more intemperate moments. They believe if more Israelis die, the Israeli public will turn against Israel's defensive priorities and shrink within its borders and ultimately retreat from the world stage. That's what they want. They want more dead Israeli civilians. There is nothing compassionate about that. You need to expose the degree to which they say everybody else is bloodthirsty. That's bloodthirsty. You're the one who wants to spill civilian blood to affect some kind of policy change that you think will beget positive social change in the world. It's delusional. It is masochistic, sadistic. It's the sort of thing that needs to be exposed with ruthless efficacy and just unfailing resolve. You can't get distracted. What they're going to want to do is distract you. Focus on this guy and what he actually believes. And I do believe that, as you said, most Democrats, rank and file Democrats, like this country. You cannot say the same about the Democratic Socialists of America. That's a real vulnerability.
So do you think Saeed becomes like the albatross, or that's the challenge of the Republicans, to make him an albatross, to make him a play in other competitive races, both at the statewide level and particularly in the Midwest, but not limited? Or is it the combination, or is it sort of all of the above? It's Graham Plantner to Troy Jackson to Francesca Hong to Al Saeed to Chevalier to, and on. What do you think?
Yeah, it can't be everybody, right? It has to be one or two very controversial figures. Al Saeed is good. Daria Eliza Chevalier is another. Neil Akiros in Colorado, who said that 9/11 was rendered inevitable by virtue of what, I guess, liberating Kuwait from Saddam Hussein. That was Osama bin Laden's logic, and she agrees with it. So you got to pick one, and then do what Democrats did to Todd Akin in 2012.
Yeah.
Make him the face of the party. Make every Democrat get on record with do you believe with what this person says, or should we cast them over the fence? The media helps Democrats in that effort. They will not help Republicans in the same way. But the GOP, with message discipline, can force the press to acknowledge their own message by virtue of saying it so often, over and over and over again, to a degree that if you're going to report on what Republicans say, you're going to have to report on that, because that's all they're saying. And that's the sort of thing that can nationalize these races in ways that Democrats establish this tactic. Republicans can perfect it.
Noah Rothman, senior writer, National Review, author of Blood and Progress, A Century of Left-Wing Violence in America. Noah, thanks as always.
Thank you.
And he joined us on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your name and your story because personalized banking still matters. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature is where I do my business banking.
Hi, I'm Tony Patrick, CEO of Total Wall and a client of Signature. We produce high-performance materials used in exterior insulating finish systems and other stucco applications. During a recent business transaction, I learned quickly that having the right banking partner matters. Signature stepped in, took time to understand my business needs, and kept things moving. If you need a banking partner you can rely on, look for a team with real experience and a commitment to your success. For me, that's Signature.
Signature helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, at 773-467-5600 or visit signature.esquirebank.com. Esquire Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Picture this, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs, and the IRS is on the hill throwing nothing but heat and chin music. Back taxes, bank levies, wage garnishments, tax liens. You're down in the count. Time to call in a pinch hitter. At PJN Tax Solutions Group, we are your pinch hitter. We deal with the revenue officers so you don't have to. PJN Tax Solutions Group is a local tax resolution firm located right here in St. Charles, Illinois. Don't call some 1-800-FIRM 10 states away. We're right here. When the IRS tries to steal home with your paycheck, we throw them out. When they load the bases with bank levies and wage garnishments, we strike them out. Strike 3, you're out. It's a full count and the game is on the line. Are you stepping up alone or are you bringing in a professional? Call PJN Tax Solutions Group now. 630-415 630-415-5296. Again, 630-415-5296. Or just Google, I want the IRS off my ASS.
Concerned about your retirement accounts or bank savings? Tired of stock market turbulence? Or simply curious about diversifying with precious metals? Tune into The Gold Show on AM 560, The Answer. Learn how gold and silver can help protect your financial future. Discover insights, strategies, and opportunities designed to help you make smarter decisions and guide you to more confident investing. Don't miss The Gold Show this Saturday morning at 11 on AM 560, The Answer.
If you're near retirement or thinking about retiring, you probably have a lot of questions. How do you make your savings last? How much should you take out and when? You're ready for retirement, but are your finances? I'm Edward Jones financial advisor, Nolan Webster. Let's work together to make sure your finances meet your unique needs over the long haul. You've done what it takes to get there. Now it's time to make the most of retirement. Call me at 224-801-6107 to schedule an appointment. That's 224-801-6107. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 7:37, the axis of aggressors versus America, what the Trump administration is facing. We'll discuss with Cliff May, president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. 7:37. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
7:32 in Chicago. And in the QC Kinetics newsroom, an investigation continues this morning after remains on more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's South Side. Authorities say Chicago police, Cook County Medical Examiner's Office officials, and investigators from the state were sent to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after regulators found decomposing bodies kept in deplorable conditions. A student shot several people at a high school outside of Bangkok, Thailand, killing 5, wounding several others. The shooter killed his 2 grandparents at home before going to the school with a gun. Senator Marsha Blackburn came out on top in the GOP primary race for Tennessee governor, defeating Congressman John Rose and a state representative.
We need safe communities. You want to make certain we support law enforcement, that we're cracking down on crime, that we're treating criminals like criminals, and law enforcement like the heroes that they are.
And a man suspected of starting one of the major wildfires scorching Spokane, Washington, appeared in court again yesterday.
Your Honor, I'm asking the court to impose the previous release conditions with the addition that I am asking the court to increase bail or bond in this amount to $2 million, given the gravity of these charges, given the addition of 4 separate arson counts.
And bond was increased for Aaron Farinacci to $2 million. He was arrested by SWAT team members earlier this week after witnesses say he saw him acting suspiciously near where the Old Trails fire began on Saturday. An athletic trainer at a DeKalb County high school is accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a student. Authorities say the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office received a report back in June about an employee at Indian Creek High School in Shibona. On Wednesday, Christina Payton turned herself in to the Sheriff's Office on facing multiple charges, including distribution of harmful material to a minor and official misconduct. And John DeMore, who played for the Bears from 1957 to 1959, passed away this week, believed to be the oldest living Chicago Bear. Passed away at age 92. DeMore was born and raised in Riverside, played college football at Northwestern, and played offensive line for the Bears. Chicago sports. Red Sox walk off the White Sox 12-11 in 13 innings at Fenway. Sox now have dropped 4 of 5, and they host Cleveland later tonight. Cubs claim their makeup game with the Blue Jays in walk-off fashion. Pete Crow Armstrong scoring on a throwing error in the 11th, securing a 3-2 win, and Kansas City is next. The news, a service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency. Go to surroundchicago.com today. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Gas prices in Chicago are riding like a roller coaster. They go up, they come down. Well, they come down a little bit, but then they go back up again. AM 560 wants to help ease your pain at the pump. Listen each weekday afternoon at 12:30 and 5:30 for the lowest gas prices around Chicagoland. And if you see a low gas price, let us know. Just text the word gas to 312-642-5600, followed by the price and location, and we'll share it right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1796, George Washington made one of the most consequential decisions in American history. He chose not to seek a third term as president. So why does that matter? Because America was not built on permanent rulers. It was built on ordered liberty. Faith teaches that authority is a stewardship, not a possession. Leaders are accountable to God for how they use power. And why does that still matter today? Because republics survive when leaders respect limits and citizens defend them. Washington's lesson still stands. A republic is preserved when power has limits, and public service remains a duty to God and country, not a path to personal rule.
Here's the deal. The government is over $38 trillion in debt, which means the IRS isn't slowing down. And the tax code is complex and unforgiving. So it's not surprising if you're one of the millions of Americans that owe back taxes to the IRS. Unfortunately, they're the world's most powerful collection agency, with the ability to garnish your wages, seize your bank accounts, and even take your home or business. But don't be stressed or worried any longer. We're Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. We have resolved over $3 billion in tax debt for our clients. Our award-winning professionals deal with the IRS every single day, protecting our clients and preparing them for the best possible resolution. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, give Optima a call today.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
The IRS just lost thousands of experienced agents. Unfortunately, your tax debt didn't disappear with them. Right now, the IRS is understaffed and overwhelmed. Now is the time to put your IRS issues behind you. Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS? Has the IRS garnished your wages yet? Have they grabbed your bank account yet? They will if you ignore them long enough. This is Patrick Noon with PJN Tax Solutions Group. We are a local tax resolution firm located right here in St. Charles, Illinois. Don't call some 1-800-FIRM 10 states away. We're right here. Listen, this is your window of opportunity. Our tax resolution team knows exactly how to leverage the chaos. But you need to act before the IRS regroups. Call us now. The IRS is in disarray. We are not. 630-415-5296. That number again, 630-415-5296. Or just Google, I want the IRS off my ASS.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance.
7:39, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Antioch, report of an accident, Route 173, Rosecrans Road, right before US 45. Lombard, North Avenue in Swift, sweeping up an accident. Addison, Lake, and I-355, an accident should be out of your way soon. Jane Addams, jammed up, slow traffic to the inbound Ike. You're jammed up eastbound between Meacham and Route 53. And slowdowns on the Stevenson stop and go this morning inbound Central to Kedzie. Traffic, a service of Audible. When you start listening to books on Audible, traffic may seem a little less annoying. More of an opportunity for another chapter. Audible, stories that speak to you. New members start listening with a 30-day free trial at audible.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Fog lifting this morning, otherwise humid and partly sunny, a high of 86.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. J.D. Vance, he's the vice president, don't you know? In an extended sit-down with Laura Ingraham, talked about a topic we were just discussing in part with Noel Rothman, which is the rise of DSA, and looks like more to come with the Wisconsin primary on Tuesday. This is how J.D. Vance explains the newfound fascination with central planning by so much of what was formerly the Democrat Party.
How does that work? Well, the way that it works, and this is exactly what El Sayed and these limousine socialists are actually selling to the American people. They're not promising you industry. They're not promising you good jobs. They're not promising self-sufficiency and a good industrial economy. What they're promising is redistribution. Again, we've seen this in Europe and in the United States. The idea that you can build real prosperity by just redistributing assets from one group to another group, that's not how you build real prosperity. You have to actually sustain the foundation of the economy. That is what the President of the United States has worked us towards for the past 18 months. It's going to continue to pay dividends. But I think, again, Laura, this is an important point. A lot of Americans look at this rising tide of socialism and say, how did we get here? We got here by 40 years of bipartisan leaders selling our industrial base to foreign countries, allowing low-wage immigrants to come in and compete with Americans for jobs, by destroying the foundation of the middle class. That's how you got socialism. How you fix that problem is by doubling down on Donald Trump's economic nationalism, not going back to the way we've done things for the past 40 years.
Yeah, kind of, somewhat. That's not the only explanation for how we got here. That's not the complete explanation, in my view. In addition to that, that is not a basis to engage in the sort of industrial policy gambits that both Trump and Vance seem inclined towards. Some of the America First economic nationalism policies, okay, sure. Not all of it. It doesn't provide categorical justification to replace their central planners with our central planners. And this is where J.D. Vance seems to get tripped up a bit. But that's more of a economic argument, although it goes to the geopolitical positioning and America's national security, too. And for more on those topics, please be joined by Cliff Mays, the president of the Foundation for Defensive Democracies and foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Times. Cliff, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's good to be with you, and I agree with you 100%. Let me start by saying this. You know, I was a foreign correspondent for the New York Times and other papers, and it appeared when the New York Times was better. And I was in places like the Soviet Union. I've been to China. I've been to a lot of socialist countries. They all failed because of socialism. But you're right. If you're going to fight socialism, you have to have free markets, free individuals, free peoples. It's not that if you want better or different government bureaucrats running the economy. I think that's what you're saying, and I think you're 100% right.
You wrote a piece for the Washington Times talking about the work product, your Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, this new book, Axis of Aggressors,
right?
Sort of updating our Axis of Evil understanding. So we're talking about China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, of course, no surprise there. But I guess provide a framework for this axis of aggressors, how they should be viewed as a collective, number one. And then number two, if they should be viewed as a collective, then even our attempts to get a deal with Iran, however quixotic those are, is it too small ball? Do we need a deal with all four?
Yes, very, very good point. Very quickly, let me say this. 3 years ago, a little more, I wrote a column along with a professor named Walter Newell, who is the world academic expert on tyrannies throughout history. And what he observed and what he and I were talking about and what this column was about was we were seeing a tremendous amount of coordination and cooperation among four countries that have very different ideologies, theologies, depending on the ones you just mentioned. And we kind of called it the axis of tyranny at that point. various FDD researchers began to get on this and put kind of meat on the theoretical bone, and really that 2 years worth of work. There's a 300-page book, and it shows just how elaborate, intricate, extensive are the military, economic, and diplomatic connections among these four countries. And you're talking about these four countries just a little more. You've got China under the Communist Party, under Xi Jinping. He's essentially Maoist. And by the way, among the things he wants to do is subjugate Taiwan. You've got Vladimir Putin. He's neo-imperialist. He wants to restore the Russian Empire. And right now he's fighting a war to subjugate the Ukrainians. You've got Kim Jong-un. He's a third-generation dictator in North Korea. He would like to take over the entire peninsula, maybe attack Japan, maybe others in that region. And you've got Tehran. And this is a regime that is committed to Islamic supremacy, wants to be the hegemon of the Middle East, dominate its neighbors, exterminate the U.S., exterminate Israel, but death to America is what it has been its intention, very clear for 47 years. They're just building the capabilities, and they are. You've got North Korean soldiers and munitions coming to Europe in order to fight with the Russians against the Ukrainians, and Putin is giving various technologies for submarines, for ICBMs, all sorts of things to North Korea. That gets to your point. Yes, we have to understand that we have a Cold War against a much greater adversary, or really four coordinated adversaries. As different as they are, what they have in common is they want to diminish American power. They want to replace the international system with a new one in which they would call the shots, one in which they would dominate. And yes, that means that just some deal with the Iranians, where I don't know what they do in this regime, promised not to make nuclear weapons and missiles to deliver them. It's how you get that to America, and that's it.
Well, so then, I mean, even if we're just talking about the Strait, or we're talking Strait of Hormuz, or we're talking about the Strait plus an Iranian nuclear program, then should we be pushing for multilateral talks with representatives from all these countries and sort of strip the veneer off of this dynamic you're describing?
I don't think it's a matter of talks. The Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway. The most fundamental of international laws is freedom of navigation based on freedom of the seas, which the U.S. has been defending for more than 200 years. But we should be very, very insistent that this international waterway not be taken over and occupied by this regime. That would be a tremendous win for them. And then if we can't beat them in the Strait of Hormuz, are we going to beat the Houthis in the Bab el-Mandeb, which is another important choke point of the international economy? It's the exit to the Red Sea. I think at this point we have to, I've been writing about this and arguing with this, others like Jack Keane have, this regime needs to be crippled or collapsed. It should have no power. And we should be very clear to its friends that that it's dangerous for them to help them. One of the things we've been seeing is the possibility that the Chinese are sending several hundred shoulder-launched man-pad missiles that would bring down American planes. Keep in mind that last year, during what was called the 12-Day War, the first 11 days, air defenses for Iran were destroyed by Israel. When our B-2 stealth bombers went in, there was no possibility of anybody hitting them. We have to, I think, make clear to the Chinese our relations would be very bad if they help the Islamic Republic of Iran in this conflict.
But the analysis you make, the point documents more than 600 instances of security cooperation among these four Axis powers, if you will, over the last 6 years. But that's, by the same token, I mean, how strong is that Axis really? It's not like the Chinese communists are coming in to help prop up Putin's army that is obviously suffering greatly under as part of this war of attrition, or they're not coming in to protect the Iranians from the destruction of the industrial base there, which is ongoing. So, I mean, there's an axis, there's sort of an alliance that makes some sense, but everybody is, very transactional, it would seem to me, about this, because they're going to pursue their interests. And the Chinese, I would surmise, see the Iranians or the North Koreans or the Russians as just sort of, it's chess pieces. They're not, going to the mat for them.
No, there seem to be some limits, but again, we need to set the red lines. As I pointed out, one would be that at a time when we have dominance of the skies over Iran, the Chinese should not be sending in missiles that can be launched by an individual to bring down American planes. I think we should make clear we see that as a very hostile act. It's not the same as sending troops in. The North Korean soldiers who survive fighting for Russia against Ukraine will go back and are going back to North Korea, where they'll train others in combat for the possibility of another war. The Chinese are learning as much best they can from Russia in its war, from Iran in its war, because its troops have no combat experience. And if they decide they want to take over Taiwan, learning from current conflicts will be very helpful. There's a lot that anybody who's following military affairs can learn from both the Ukraine war and the conflict in the Gulf, not least the importance of unmanned weapons, drone warfare, counter-drone warfare. We got way behind on that. We didn't understand, I'm afraid, how important these weapons would be. They have pretty much saved the Ukrainians, but they've been very detrimental to us as well, because one drone can hit one commercial vessel, and that scares the insurers in London and scares the captains who want to come through the Strait of Hormuz. So there's a lot being learned for future conflicts here. And yes, there may be limitations, but I think we have to be very clear with our adversaries about those limitations. There have to be red lines. We have to enforce those red lines.
Draw red lines and enforce them. Okay. Your interpretation of President Trump's decision to call off a strike against the Iranians this week at the behest of the Saudis, reportedly, and then spend the rest of the week along with Scott Bessent saying we're close to a deal to sort of permanently reopen the strait, or close to a deal in the strait, we're close to a deal. I mean, is that to be seen as just trying to assuage a jittery market by not by rhetorically preventing oil prices from spiking and the Dow from cratering?
Well, I guess possibly it's vacillation. Oil prices in all this time haven't really spiked, and they're not now. I think we should be wary. The president should be wary about a deal in which Iran ends up with essentially control of the Strait of Hormuz. And say we have sovereignty over it. It's now our piece of real estate. I don't think we should want that now. He has many other things in mind. This is a 60-day deal that's disgusting. I haven't done it yet. The Saudis and some others are worried they have spent all this money, but they haven't properly defended themselves. They say, well, the reason there are U.S. bases in the region, that's to defend us. You've not been able to defend us. You get drones. You haven't had warfare on it now lately. I think there's serious thought, and I'm not sure exactly where it is amongst the various Gulf states. Do we want to live in a region in which the Shia and versions of the Islamic Republic of Iran dominate us? We kowtow, we pay tribute. They're the new colossus of the Middle East. Do we want that, or do we side with the U.S., or do we not? Maybe we don't find the U.S. viable. Again, their bases are not doing what we thought they would do when we gave those bases to them. It's a bit of a confused situation at the moment. It's possible the president has plans he's not telling any of us, maybe for resuming conflict after midterms, maybe for opening the Strait of Hormuz, the way you just mentioned, just for the next 60 days. But I can't tell you, I'm feeling usually encouraged.
Cliff May, president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Times. Cliff, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. My pleasure.
And Cliff joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
You know that feeling when you call your insurance company and you know that you're getting put into queue? Nobody wants to go through that, specifically Tommy and TJ Iaquinta with Class A Insurance. They're a father and son team built right here in Chicago's southwest suburbs on one idea: treat people like family. See, because they're independent, they're not stuck in pushing one company policy on you, one company rates on you. They shop the best carriers in the country, names you'd recognize, and find coverage that actually fits your life, your home, your car, even your boat and motorcycle. That's why they've been named one of the top 25 home insurance agencies in Chicago. 2 generations, 1 agency. And clients that stick with them for years. When something happens and claims happen, Tommy or TJ is the one who picks up the phone and walks you through the process themselves. If you're paying for a policy you don't understand from a company you never talk to, it's simple. Head to 560insurance.com. That's 560insurance.com. Get a free quote in minutes at 560insurance.com.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
Now that summer is here, it's time for some summer home maintenance.
Let's go!
Hot water issues? Call CenterGuard Plumbing. Right now, get a new 40-gallon atmospheric vent water heater installed for just $1,295 standard installation, or a 50-gallon for $1,395 standard installation, with free haul away of your old tank. A proud sponsor of AM 560, you'll save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on tankless and atmospheric vent water heaters with CenterGuard Plumbing. Plus, get 10% off any licensed plumbing contractor competitor's price. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon, and they can schedule your repair or install the same day on in-stock water heaters. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM 560 to receive summer special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life. AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 8:08, we're going to talk to a Chicago mayoral candidate, somebody coming from the outside in, Joe Holberg, joeforchicago.com if you want to look up his particulars. We'll talk to him about his candidacy at 8:08, and then at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, of course, it's that time of the week, the end of it, which means it's time for Open Mic Friday. Taking your calls at the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, 312-642-5600 and the alphawealthgroup.com answer line. Open Mic Friday, 8:38. Mayoral candidate Joe Holberg at 8:08. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
Jobs lost, not gained. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. We just got that hiring update, a worse than expected jobs report for July.
Negative 23,000. Unemployment rate drops in July to 4.1% from 4.2% in June.
Fox Business Network's Lauren Simonetti, that lost jobs last month unexpected. A gain of 80,000 jobs was predicted, and there have been revisions down for May and June. 103,000 fewer jobs created than first reported. But on Wall Street, stock futures rise with less concern concern about a future Federal Reserve interest rate hike. The Senate may vote today on acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's nomination, and the second Republican plans to vote no. Lisa Murkowski joins Susan Collins opposing making Blanche full-time AG.
Murkowski said in a statement that she is concerned that the Trump administration could go forward with its proposed fund to compensate January 6th rioters, even though Blanche has said he will shelve the idea. She also said she has issues with the handling of the release of the Epstein files and what she called, quote, sweeping immunity protections granted to President Trump, his family, and their businesses, among other things.
That's Fox's Tanya J. Powers. If one more Republican senator sides with Democrats, Blanche would not be confirmed. Another congressman has lost a primary, the ninth one in the House this year. Andy Ogles, a Republican in Tennessee who had President Trump's endorsement, defeated by GOP challenger Charlie Hatcher, who was backed by Governor Bill Lee. Now, Lee can't run again. Senator Marsha Blackburn won the Republican primary to replace him.
We are a solid red conservative state, and all of these socialist, communist policies end at the Tennessee state line.
Blackburn faces Democrat Jerry Green in November. 5 teachers and staffers are dead at a school near Bangkok, Thailand. A 14-year-old student went on a shooting spree, wounding more than 20 others. He also killed his grandparents before going to school. The boy's also dead. He killed himself as well. America's listening to Fox News.
70 degrees, 8:02, fog lifting, but a humid and hot afternoon is on the way. In the QC Kinetics newsroom, an investigation continues today after remains of more than 50 people were recovered from a funeral home on Chicago's South Side. Authorities say Chicago Police, Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, and the state sent in investigators to the South Chicago Chapel yesterday after state regulators found decomposing bodies kept in deplorable conditions.
I can't imagine what the family members are going through. And they trusted the funeral home to put their loved ones away, and they in there decomposed. That's terrible.
Regulators have suspended the funeral director's license. The medical examiner's office is working with authorities to identify the bodies and notify families. State lawmakers will likely have a new item on their agenda when they convene for the fall veto session in November, finding an extra $150 million for the Chicago public schools. House Speaker Chris Welch now says he didn't promise the money.
The $150 million, I don't know where that number come from. I made a commitment to fight for funding.
Chicago Board of Education last week approved a budget that assumes additional state funding to avoid around 1,000 layoffs. Springfield lawmakers from both sides of the aisle now say the political will to have a bailout for CPS is not there. Plus, any changes in state budget require a 3/5 majority vote in both chambers. Chicago sports. Red Sox walk off the White Sox in 13 innings, 12-11, while the Cubs were winners over the Blue Jays in walk-off fashion, 3-2. Cubs head to Kansas City next. The news service of the daily podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and the Sean Thompson Show. Subscribe free at 560theanswer.com, and time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature, a division of Esquire Bank.
I'm Elizabeth McDonald, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Wendy's sales declined even more than expected in the recent quarter, though its CEO Bob Wright sees better days ahead. Wright recently returned to run Wendy's. He was its CEO about a decade ago. Wright says the restaurant chain clearly is not performing at its potential. Wendy's is rebuilding its menu to offer more compelling value. It's improving technology and is stepping up its market efforts. Wendy's is not offering a forecast for the year. It's lowering the dividend it pays to shareholders. Sportswear company Under Armour made a small profit in recent months compared with a loss in the period a year ago. Under Armour is also undergoing a transformation. Wall Street will be reacting today to the monthly employment report for July. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Virago and by State Farm Insurance Agent Anthony DeGrotto.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your name and your story because personalized banking still matters. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature is where I do my business banking.
Hi, I'm Phil Silverman, CFO of Chicago Atlantic and a client of Signature. We provide capital solutions in markets where risk is often fundamentally mispriced and traditional financing can be limited. Ahead of an important and complex transaction closing, Signature promptly assisted us in addressing a wire issue through their monitoring and verbal verification process, helping us administer the closing on time while maintaining best-in-class control oversight. That kind of hands-on attention is hard to find, and that's why we value our relationship with Signature.
Signature helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, at 773-467-5600 or visit signature.esquirebank.com. Esquire Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today.
When it comes to supplements, two things matter most. One, that it works. And two, you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, I want to let my audience do it. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I'd like you to hear a few of their stories. Jim wrote in, he said he ran out of Relief Factor twice. Both times his ache and stiffness and pain came back. Once he restarted, he said, I felt better again. As Jim puts it, you know something's working when you run out of it. Jim, I can tell you that's exactly. I mean, I didn't run out of it. I just thought, my wife made me take it. I'm like, it's not going to work. And then I started feeling better, and I was like, well, I did my 3 weeks. I'm feeling better, but it's just me. I'm in a good spot. I stopped taking it, and it all came rushing back. That's how I appreciate what Relief Factor does, and it could change your life. They make it easy to find out if you'll be the next person telling us Relief Factor helped you tackle your daily aches and pain. 3 weeks for just $17.76. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. Get the 3-week quick start, $17.76. 1-800-4RELIEF. ReliefFactor.com. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us.
8:08. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Stop and go on the Bishop Ford inbound between Cottage Grove and the Ryan. Roadwork delays northbound 53 between the Ike and Kirchhoff. An accident in Addison Lake right at I-355. Traffic, a service of Aleve. At some point, body pain will creep in and become your reality that day. But Aleve is here to keep you moving. One pill gives you up to 12 hours of body pain relief. Don't let pain hold you back. Try Aleve today and use as directed. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, and up next, a check of the morning forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect humid conditions with intervals of sunshine and a high of 85. Tonight will be partly cloudy and humid with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas towards dawn and a low of 70. Tomorrow will bring partly sunny skies and a high of 85. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from the Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Of course, the Chicago mayor's race is in full swing now with the entrance of anticipated candidates like lobbyist John Kelly and LEG. Those are the candidates that the media is focusing upon. So, but that should tell you something about them. and you could take that a couple of different ways, including less than positive. But, the race, it'll sneak up on you. You back out the holidays, February primary for a runoff to April, most likely, given the size of the field. A candidate who maybe hasn't gotten as much attention, but actually has the resources to meaningfully participate so far, is Joe Holberg, joeforchicago.com. And, as you've heard me talk about on the show before, candidates need to have an answer to the why question. Why are you running? Yes, but more like in the Simon Sinek sense of explain to me your motivation, because I'm not interested in what you're going to do or how you're going to do it until I'm persuaded by the why you're doing this. And as somebody coming in from the outside who was an entrepreneur and I guess spent some time as a teacher in CPS on the West Side, that why is going to need to be compelling to generate attention against what, sort of the myopia of establishment thinking when it comes to the press in this city and state. So here's Holberg in part giving his why on TTW.
I grew up in rural Michigan in a low-income household. We were on food stamps. I was a first-generation college student, and I actually ran out of money and almost had to drop out of school, and I was homeless, and I slept in my car. I came to Chicago for a job and an opportunity to make a life, and by serving and putting other people first, I was able to start a business, grow it, create jobs across the city, and serve tens of thousands of people. And eventually that company was acquired, which was a life-changing opportunity. And to me, the best thing I can do with the opportunities and the resources that I've worked really hard for is to continue to put other people first, serve them, and make sure they have opportunities to grow in their lives, just like I have in Chicago.
Joe Holberg is a candidate for mayor, city of Chicago. Again, the website for information on his candidacy and vision and all that jazz, joeforchicago.com, joeforchicago.com. Joe, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So develop that why for us a little bit more. I mean, I get the servant leader part of it. So how does that translate in a way that makes you unique in this field as it's currently constituted?
Well, as you were alluding to in sort of the opening, we have a lot of myopia in the political sense as it relates to mayor. And, we continue to see career politicians, right? There's value in their service and their longevity in politics, but we're also starting to see that the results of the political class have put us in a defensive position in Chicago, right? I think just yesterday or the day before, we ranked 49th out of the entire country for the amount of housing that we're building. I personally don't think that we should be near the bottom or last. I would like to see us, grow and win more. I would like to be able to see a balanced budget. That's one of my central priorities, having written 2 books on finance myself, in addition to running a financial technology company. We know these things are possible, but when the government is filled with people that are backed by special interest that is more concerned with maintaining the status quo than it is about serving the people of Chicago, I take issue with that, and so do the hundreds and the thousands of people that have contributed to our campaign, volunteered, participated in conversations. It's really clear that people are fed up with the status quo and are looking for a fresh perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody wants negativity, but we also don't want sort of the beautiful lies, sort of the cheap jingoism that we get all the time. At least that's my view on it. And I wonder if the cost of the Holberg Plan, a mayoral candidate's vision for Chicago, to get a copy of it, costs $18.71. $18.71. That reminds me of something. Is that sort of a implicit indicator of where you think Chicago is in like a post-Great Fire rebuilding?
I I think we are at a true crux, both in Chicago, but also nationally, in terms of some of these core questions that we're trying to answer. Coincidentally or not so coincidentally, we're also at the 250th anniversary of the nation, as we well know. And we're starting to see some of the fundamental assumptions of the relationship between government and its people be called into question. And instead of taking a view of, pandering to get votes, I think we need to start to think about the vision and the hope and the dream that we're all going to be working towards and chasing in Chicago. And I think we have some enormous opportunities at our doorstep, literally at a time when things like water and energy are coming back into the fray. We need to reimagine and re-envision what is possible, and we need to step out of sort of the day-to-day infighting that you see among factions, and we need to start to work on unifying ourselves so we can solve big problems together, even if it's not a perfect happy family style. Right? We can disagree, we can learn to collaborate, but we have to start approaching and solving much larger problems than the ones that we've sort of been focused on in the last couple of years. So yes, the choice of 1871, sort of the allusion to the Chicago plan, that's where my head's at, and that's where I want to take the city.
So when you talk about opportunities that are present right now, and to give us an example of one that is present but sort of unaccounted for. I mean, in other words, there's not enough focus on it to seize an opportunity that is presenting itself.
I think one of them that I would sort of call attention to, as both a former teacher and somebody who spent time, in financial technology, building solutions to help people advance their financial lives. One of the fundamental things as a society we have to get right is education, right? If you don't have an educated population, your entire society becomes at risk of not being able to sustain itself or to really capitalize on the opportunities. The thing that is very specific to me that I want the mayoral race and just the city to pay attention to in general is this idea of attendance. You cannot get achievement for students without attendance. And not only do we have a chronic absenteeism crisis unfolding before our very eyes, over 30% of CPS students are chronically absent. Over 57% of high school students are chronically absent. And over 40% of CPS staff themselves are chronically absent. If people are treating school as optional, we are not going to invest in and build the next generation of critical thinkers that can advance our city, our economy, and our society more generally. And I think that's something super concrete that I'm trying to work towards. Obviously, with an elected school board, that's going to be more of a partnership model, which I'm excited about collaborating with the board and CPS. But as a city, that is something super foundational that we have to pay attention to. So do we just need a couple more Bud Billiken Day parades to punctuate, scattered throughout the year to punctuate the issue of absenteeism? Or do we have to rethink how we do K through 12 education in Chicago? And that means rethinking the fifth floor relationship with the teachers union. I think it's both. I mean, you've got these awareness things. You've got the tax holiday that started today, dropping the effective rate of taxes to make it easier and more affordable to purchase school supplies for hardworking families. You've got the Bud Billiken parade that you mentioned, tomorrow going on the South Side. And then you've got more structural issues. Like, we need to come up with a system that more transparently holds schools accountable to attendance, right? How are they going to learn math? How are they going to learn reading or social studies or science if they're not in school? And so at the system level, making sure that we are equipping CPS with tools and resources to focus on what the research says drives academic outcomes, which is attendance, and then thinking about holding a union accountable to the thing that they purport, which is they care about students, as they say. Well, if we care about students, then we need to be laser focused as a city, as a community, as stakeholders to driving attendance. it doesn't matter how many resources a school has if kids are not going there to learn.
You think Governor Pritzker is making a mistake by not opting into the national school choice program, the way that Governor Polis, Democrat in Colorado, is opting in to take advantage of whatever resources are out there that can provide more optionality for families?
I think at this moment, when we are so resource constrained, there is a great case to receive more federal funding. And these are uncomfortable trade-offs that we have to be willing to make in order to ensure that our city and our state has what it needs to deliver on its promise of education, and specifically making sure we have great school choice for students and families. And so in general, you're telling me that we could get tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into our state to bolster school choice. I think that's something that I can get behind and support.
What's your assessment of the job Brandon Johnson has done?
My assessment is, he's a well-intentioned individual, but I think it's pretty clear after 3.5 years that we're experiencing sort of a failure of leadership, right? You're seeing mass departures. He is unable to recruit and retain top talent in key positions. And unfortunately, the list is too numerous of vacancies and departures to sort of keep track of. Most notably, Annette Guzman just leaving along with not having a CFO. Going into budget season, I'm actually pretty concerned for the city that this budget process, this last budget that he's going to have, I think this is where the wheels are really going to come off. You're going to see a lot of sort of ideological warfare around increased taxes, increased spending, at a time when we need to be focused on affordability. We need to be focused on building housing. We need to be focused on balancing the budget and making sure the city respects and honors taxpayer dollars and resources rather than gouging them by asking them to pay for more and more. And I think you see that in the polls. People are extremely disaffected and dissatisfied with him, and this is the exact right time to consider new leadership.
Just taking a step back, I mean, I mentioned it, but provide some depth for us. Your, as I understand reading about it, sort of financial literacy business that you, as you mentioned in your why answer on TTW, was something you built and was acquired, and so that was a good event for you. But financial literacy, that seems like the order of the day, starting with the city council.
I mean, how aligned could my background be? Right? Not only did I run a small business and create jobs which allowed people to pursue their own version of financial health and wellness, but the business itself was designed to help people better manage their resources, right? Not only do we not teach it in school where we should, but that leaves people moving into adulthood with a lot of financial confusion and financial stress. And then you see a lot of elected individuals, and I'm not, criticizing or naming any names, right? But how would you expect? How would you expect a city council or a mayor or anyone in government to manage an $18 billion budget if they themselves don't really understand the inner workings of the financial system, credit cards, debt, bonds, like all of these things at the personal level flow up to an important skill set and background and expertise when you're thinking about larger scale financial systems, the government, businesses, et cetera. We have a lack of financial education in the United States, and that was exactly what my business sought to address.
And I mean, you've put a substantial amount of money in the campaign, or lent it to the campaign. One of the things, obviously, is somebody coming from the outside in without a substantial public profile is, repetition and rapport is what's required to build brand, and that takes resources. I mean, do you have the personal capacity / desire to compete financially with some of those that are going to be more well-heeled because of their long-standing relationships with the institutional entities like the unions? I'm talking about Ali G. I'm talking about John Kelly. the resources to compete to get this message out, to provide something, from what I'm hearing, that presents a new way of thinking in the city?
I think the short answer is yes. And to put it into context, I've contributed to my own campaign. I feel very privileged and fortunate to be able to have done that. But 15 years ago, I was homeless on the verge of dropping out of college and on food stamps. And so there's something fundamentally important about giving people jobs and opportunities to work towards their goals and their success. And I think my story is what's connecting with people all over the city. I'll give you an example. We have a lot of people that run businesses. We have a lot of college-educated people that are donors to the campaign. But I was on the west side of Chicago yesterday, and somebody rolled down their window, right, and said, "Go Mayor," right? Just like straight up yelled at me. I have former students that have given me, $10 to the campaign, which means as much to me as any other level of contribution. And the reason is because we're competing in a new media landscape, as we've seen all across the country, where money can't buy happiness and money can't buy the mayor's seat, right? And so when we're on social media talking to real people about real issues they're facing around the housing crisis, lead water poisoning people in their home, the ridiculousness of the overpriced bid that Mayor Johnson put for the parking meters, which I still think we can and should get back, right? That's not a decided issue. That's an asset that we need to own for the city in the long run, rather than turn it into a liability and a cost center. Like, these are the types of things that are allowing us to break through the noise. And as we've seen many times over history, and certainly recently, just because you have money at the start, just because your parents, seeded your political career, that isn't as important. It's still important, but it's not the only determining factor that is allowing candidates to break through the noise.
Speaking of getting things back, do you think you can get the Bears back? Should we try?
I think we should try. My focus, obviously, would be to keep the Bears in Chicago. But even more importantly, I'm sitting there and thinking about what Soldier Field could be or what it could become. And my vision is to put a roof, and we can make it retractable, right, so that the Bears can still have the home field advantage when it snows and it's cold. But I envision Soldier Field being something that's way more valuable and productive over time. And a roof would allow us to have Beyonce concerts in January or February. And so instead of fighting over, how much money the city or the McCaskey family is going to put into Soldier Field, we should start dreaming up how to use that space and turn it into an event venue and an entertainment magnet that draws in more events over the course of the year, so that we can have more tourism, we can have more people staying in hotels, dining out, and it's about growing and supercharging our economy through what we already have. That gets me really excited, just as much as it is exciting to think about getting the Bears back. I hope they don't leave before I become mayor, because first thing I'm going to do is walk in that door and say, let's make this work, rather than what Brandon Johnson, I think there was a quote, months ago, he said, "I tried my hardest and, I'm throwing in the towel." And it's like, what are you talking about, man? This is a city that's built on problem solving. This is a city that gets stuff done. We don't throw in the towel. We get it done.
All right, I got to ask you this. It's a little bit of a tangential question, but since you're a University of Michigan alum, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right, but it is sort of a cultural touchstone. So I think it's interesting. So University of Michigan announced that beginning this fall of 2027, the college will designate all literature, science, and arts first-year students their first semester grades as pass or no credit on their transcripts. Final grades will not be recorded on their external transcripts and will not be reflected in their GPAs. This is an effort to curb the mental health crisis in higher ed, so says Michigan, because Michigan grads, and it's not an easy school to get into, even though you have to be a pretty good student to get into Michigan. There's too anxiety-ridden to be able to deal with less than the grades they desire in their first semester. So we're going to hide them from them. What do you think about that?
I think this is an example of people trying to solve problems and experiment to find solutions that could work. Time will tell. The data will show itself later. But from an experimentation perspective, like, we know that students today are facing different issues than when I was in school, right? The prevalence of social media, creating mental health issues, like, I think the research is there, is not only coming out, but it's pretty clear. I was very unprepared to go to the University of Michigan. I came from a small rural high school. I was top of my class in middle of Michigan. But at the same time, I went to the University of Michigan, and the academic rigor was exceedingly high to my benefit. But I could see a version of reality where if I was just acclimating for that one first semester, I still have 7 other semesters where I can get grades. I could see myself benefiting, and I could see myself pretty annoyed that I couldn't actually measure that, A, B, C range. So I think I'm willing to experiment and try things, and I think that is a characteristic of leadership that's super important in an ever-evolving world. So why not try it?
Joe Holberg is candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago, as we've been discussing. His website, again, joeforchicago.com, joeforchicago.com. Joe Holberg, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1796, George Washington made one of the most consequential decisions in American history. He chose not to seek a third term as president. So why does that matter? Because America was not built on permanent rulers. It was built on ordered liberty. Faith teaches that authority is a stewardship, not a possession. Leaders are accountable to God for how they use power. And why does that still matter today? Because republics survive when leaders respect limits and citizens defend them. Washington's lesson still stands. A republic is preserved when power has limits, and public service remains a duty to God and country, not a path to personal rule.
The following contains a celebrity impersonation.
Mr. President, we're seeing reporting that air conditioning systems are failing as temperatures rise. What is your response?
I said, don't wait. People wait until the last second, then suddenly it's hot and nothing works. I understand this stuff probably better than anybody.
Mr. President, why hasn't the White House issued any guidance?
I gave perfect guidance. Call Air Right Heating and Cooling. That's the guidance. If people followed it, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Sir, but homeowners have so many HVAC options.
They're not like Air Right. You've got some bad installers out there, some real bad hombres. I wouldn't let them near the White House. It would be a complete disaster.
Mr. President, there are reports of significant rebates on new systems. Can you confirm?
I've heard about them. A lot of people talking about them. If you miss out, you'd have to be really not so smart. Tremendous savings, let me tell you.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling at AIR-RITE.com. Air Right, doing it right since 1959.
AM 560. The Answer.
Open mic! Open mic Friday! Call it now! Open mic Friday!
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yeah, that time of the week, Open Mic Friday, where we take your calls. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com. Call and text line. Take your calls with comments, compliments, concerns, criticisms, general crack pottery. We'll take it all as we do. And text from 815. Start with the text. Talking about Joe Holberg. We were just talking with candidate for mayor of the city of Chicago. Love the guy's enthusiasm and the economy and keeping the Bears, but he's unfortunately talking with too much common sense for the Chicago voter to understand. Maybe. Remember, he just needs a plurality in a crowded primary. And as I was alluding to, he pumped $500,000 into his campaign so far, his last reporting period for in the June reporting period, he had more than $1 million on hand. So that's not nothing. I mean, it's not Ali G's $20 million, and he doesn't start with the same name ID. But, he's been out grinding it since last year, apparently. And so, maybe there is a common sense cohort of voters that wants to do something completely different and could amass in support of something completely different, actually coordinate with the help of the campaign, ostensibly. I don't know. You don't want to be completely despondent. Interesting. Glenn in Orlando.
Yeah, hey, Dan. I hope you're doing well. I keep thinking about the most famous transgender person that I remember, and his name was Norman Bates. And maybe the WNBA can do something with Norman Bates night or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call, Glenn. Bill in Waukegan.
Hey, Dan, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say, do you feel anything's going to ever happen to Fauci and his team of really bad scientists? I mean, to me, it's like, we were manipulated, and not only by him, but the media and everybody. And it's like, even Amy, when she was on, wearing her hazmat suit and stuff, it's like, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen from this point forth? Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Bill. We talked about that a little bit to open the show after the contempt of Congress resolution was moved, the criminal referral made to the Department of Justice yesterday. And look, the prosecution, has the potential to impose a jail sentence of up to a year and a fine of up to $1,000. Probably not going to happen. Probably wouldn't stand if it did happen and was convicted because of the Fifth Amendment issue, which is the basis on which the case would turn, whether or not it was a legitimate use of his Fifth Amendment privilege. But, it's a far cry from where we were just a few years ago, I would say. And the fact that the lovely Mrs. Fauci was giving people the "you're number one" finger that were congregating outside of Fauci's house to watch him take out the garbage after he was after that contempt of Congress resolution was passed, that they're none too happy. They're not really enjoying the spotlight the way they used to. That's something. I mean, remember Fauci scoffing in 2021 at the idea that he could be prosecuted for anything.
Senator Cruz told the Attorney General you should be prosecuted.
Yeah. I'd have to laugh at that. I should be prosecuted. What happened on January 6th, Senator?
What does January 6th have to do with anything, sad little man? And what does Ted Cruz have to do with January 6th, since you're responding to Ted Cruz? But that was, Margie Brennan from Face the Nation platforming Fauci's dismissiveness towards any sorts of criticism or accountability, suggestion that he had acted improperly. And of course, we know now for certain that he did, and knowingly so, from the Hello Kitty diary entries. So, what will happen? I think, increasingly, and now we've got phone records that are being poured over, increasingly he is going to go down as a terrible person, as a blight on public health and public service, and as a villain of the COVID era. And that's not nothing, especially with the regard he has for himself. I am science. Kevin, Austin, Texas.
Hey, thanks, Dan, for taking my call. The left in Illinois wins because they cultivate their grassroots, and the Republican Party does not in Illinois. I mean, they have block clubs or, GOP clubs, all these different types of things, and they have donors that put seed money into making those things happen. And then you'll have an army to come out and help people get out the vote. But Illinois doesn't do that. I mean, I've been advocating that Illinois GOP does that since COVID started, when I first started listening to you guys. And hopefully they do it. Now we're, 90 days until the election? And now they expect to, throw some ads out there. And now they can't even raise money to do it, to throw some ads out there to tell people to get involved. I mean, it's a day late and a dollar short.
Thanks for the call.
Illinois is where it is.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. Verlon in Michigan. Verlon, we're counting on you to carry Mike Rogers across the finish line in November.
Oh yeah. I'm fighting for Mike Rogers. He's gonna win. Don't worry about that Hayek guy. That's all gonna be marginalized to Dearborn. But the rest of the state, listen, like I told Amy the other day, Michigan people, they're not all in your face like we are in Chicago, where we're from. But they have woken up. They see it, and they don't want it to go that way. I predicted 2.5 years ago Michigan was going to go red, and it's going red. It's not going as fast as we want, but it's going red. Now, I got 2 questions for you, and I want to make you a bet. Now, my first question to you, now that Willie Wilson is in the race, are you still a whitey for Willie?
I mean, I like Willie Wilson, as you know. I got to find out. I like this Joe Holberg is a new face, and he was pretty reasonable and thoughtful and together. So I'm gonna kick the tires a little bit, but we'll have Willie on. I'll hear him out as always.
Okay. Now my second question for you. I know you like this guy, but who do you think is the front runner in the mayor's race now that it's about 20 people in the race?
I don't know. I think everybody would say Ali G because of the money and I guess the profile, whatever that means. But I'm not at all convinced. And point of fact, I think probably if I had to pick like a modest favorite right now in a crowded field, probably Susana Mendoza.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you this. I told this to Sean. This is not an Obama town anymore. This is not Rahm Emanuel's town anymore. Prep Winkle and Stacey Davis Gates and whoever the head of SEIU is, they run this town. And whoever they pick, the teachers union and SEIU and Prep Winkle, that's who's going to be mayor, and that's going to be Brandon Johnson because there's nobody else that's going to give them what they want but Brandon Johnson. So I'm going to make you the same bet that I made Sean. If I'm picking Brandon Johnson, you don't have to pick anybody, but I'm going to pick Brandon Johnson.
Oh, I get the field? Okay.
You get the field.
Right.
If I lose in May, at the beginning of May, my birthday, May 2nd, I'm coming to Naples, Florida, and I'm going to buy you and Sean a steak dinner. Okay, but if you all lose, I'm still coming to Naples, and I want my steak dinner, and I like it rare.
All right.
You want to take that bet?
Yeah, I'll take that bet. Wow.
All right, no problem.
And we'll show you a good steak dinner regardless of who has to pick up the check for line. You don't have to worry about that.
All right.
Got lots of options down there. All right. I mean, the Brandon Johnson thing. Thanks for the call, Verlon. It's interesting. I have a hard time seeing where he's at now, how he wins a runoff. That's the issue. Not that it's not plausible that he could get to the runoff in a crowded field, as long as there's the same enthusiasm behind him from the government unions, as Verlon was rightly pointing out. But I have a hard time seeing him get to a second term. He's sort of very much in the same position as Lightfoot was at the end of her first term. Sure, she can make a runoff, but can you? And she didn't, obviously, but she could. Plausible, but can you win a general? I just don't think so. High floor, low ceiling. I think that's where BLM is at. But never underestimate the Chicago electorate penchant for missing opportunities. Yeah, and that assumes BLM even gets in. More mayor talk. Larry in Elmhurst.
Hey, good morning. Hey, Janulius is probably going to win this because he's got the mob. He's got Jaws and the other guy. What's his name? Whatever. Yeah,
Jaws Durango is going to put him over the top. I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Jaws doesn't have the clout that he used to have. Yeah. Thanks for the call, Larry. Those are his friends, though. Failed mob banker and Mimbo. Those are 2 real calling cards. Allie G. Pathetic. Embarrassing. Jordan in Antioch.
Morning, Dan. Yeah, with this whole Fauci thing, I think everybody is aware that he's not getting thrown in jail. There's not going to be a criminal prosecution. But what there has been is a public. There's the coming of a public reckoning.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's something akin. I mean, it's not quite because it's not across the board. He's still got some of his defenders, but I mean, he did do a little bit of a walk of atonement at that hearing.
And you've seen people, that were on the other side of that, like going, oh, well, now we're on the wrong side. And they're trying to come back. We're trying to at least get back in the public eye. But I really hope, I know he's not going to be incarcerated. I know he's not going to be monetarily affected by this, but I hope that he never has a day of peace. I hope that every single day he has some harping shrew in his face at some point, preferably when he least needs it, getting on him about, like we had to, about masks and vaccinations and going the wrong way in the grocery store against the stupid arrows and the idiot spots in the checkout line. I hope he has every single day for the rest of his life, he has somebody reminding him of who he is. And I hope his wife ends up having to put her finger in a cast because she's flipping off so many people that she becomes incapacitated. I hope that is the payment. That is the reckoning that he deserves, is to never have a day of peace without be reminding of just how evil and how nasty he is.
Yeah.
And how he affected the rest of us.
Yeah.
So that is kind of.
Thanks for the call, Jordan. Yeah, I mean, a name that shall live in infamy. He thought it was going to be one way, all the hero worship, and look how that went sideways in a relatively short amount of time. Lou in Western PA.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights to the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Nobody does a Fauci impersonation like you, Lou.
I am who I am.
Thanks for the call. I mean, and I know everybody's heard it by now, but I just can't play it enough, at least a snippet of it. And that's Aaron Rodgers this week on McAfee's show, giving it to Fauci and ESPN. MS ESPN, as Clay Travis termed it, appropriate. That, the sports world and how Stephen Smith apologizing to Kyrie Irving now and all so somewhat of a reckoning. But, the pressure should be kept up in those directions, too.
Is everything better? Is everything funner? Is everything more awesome? Like, how do you kind of view this year versus maybe the years of the past?
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Okay.
Okay. Gotta love that guy. Like that absolute coward, Tony Fauci. Absolute coward.
Yeah. Hey, it's back, baby.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, 111
You
times.
got a pardon and you're in front and you pleaded over 100 times at the White House. What are you scared of, Tony?
Yeah.
I thought you were the science.
Yeah.
I thought you were I am science, and you get up there and you can't answer a question.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And how much time did the network spend at that? How much time did they spend on my responses every week, on my vaccination status, on Taylor and Travis's wedding? Did they do even a minute? Did they do even a minute on Tony Fauci?
No, I don't think I've heard anything.
I bet they didn't.
Love it. Bart in Bradenton, Florida.
Hey, good morning, Dan. For our Illinois listeners that might not understand that property taxes can be eliminated, Florida has a ballot initiative, as I'm sure you're aware, this November, where the homestead exemption is going to go way up over 2 years, basically potentially eliminating most property taxes for homesteaded properties. So what are your thoughts on maybe its potential passage? It's got to be a 60% level.
Yeah, well, I think that the prospect is good, in part because that $250,000 exemption, that would essentially effectively eliminate property taxes for 60% of the homes, the homesteaded homes in Florida. So there's a pretty good base to start with, the idea that it would go up from there, because that's certainly DeSantis's vision, and I assume Byron Donalds will pick up that baton and run with it. So I mean, I think it's incredible. I think it's great. I think it's just another feather in DeSantis's cap as perhaps the best governor in the last 50 years of any state in the country. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's great.
And, all these, all my friends in Illinois, you just stay up there and keep paying property taxes. They're going to continue to go up. So enjoy.
Thanks for the call, Bart. Matt, South Bend.
I just thought it'd be fitting for Dr. Fauci for every time he goes out for a drive that he has to stop at a drive-through pharmacy and get his nose swabbed like I had to do. I think that would be just righteous if he did that every time he went out for a drive. I would be satisfied with that.
Thanks for the call, Matt. Prime Minister, Ogden Dunes.
Now, true or false, perspicacious prof, you are right now wearing a blue hat.
That is true. Yeah.
And true or false, you are wearing a shirt with a Blackhawks
logo. No, it's not the Blackhawks. It's Seminole. It's a Seminole logo, like from Seminole Golf Club in Florida.
I stand corrected because you do don the golf stuff. I wish that every listener would know that they can go onto a thing called YouTube on their TV, and they can dial in 560 AM Morning Answer, and they can see you delivering the great and mighty ideas that you serve up every morning. They can actually see you rubbing your nose, unshaven,
yes,
but giving these tremendous ideas. And I would ask, is it possible that we could have Amy on the relief days in a sort of...
Don't do it.
Let's call it pajama.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Pajamagrams. Yeah. Only for pajamagram season can I think you request that. Yeah.
Yes, but I do think that all the listeners would enjoy from time to time, if not always, watching you because you don't have a script in front of you. I notice. How is that to be done?
It's an unscripted program. You never know what I'm going to say there, PM. But yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Well, I thank you,
Appreciate the
sir.
stalking. Yes, thank you, and the vivid description of my physical appearance. Thank you very much. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Dan, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I heard this guy on another show. He's taking his daughter to Atlanta for college on a U-Haul. After hearing that story about those decomposing bodies over there on the southeast side, do not come back, sir. Stay over there in Atlanta with your daughter. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for the call, Eduardo. Bob in Buffalo Grove.
Hi, Dan. Always good talking to you. Flashing back to what the Prime Minister said, I watch you on Facebook and also on the sidebar are the comments from your listeners.
Sure, those are all temperate and complimentary, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Earlier this week, I saw several stories on the rise of measles. So let me offer 30 years ago, I began following various immigration issues with groups like FAIR and the Center for Immigration Studies. Back then in the early 90s, they raised concerns about the influx of immigrants, both legal and illegal, and also including skilled worker, temporary workers. One topic that they raised over 30 years ago was admitting a foreign populace that was not screened or vaccinated. They predicted a rise in diseases in the U.S. Well, look what's happening right now with measles and other diseases. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, yeah, thanks for the call, Bob. I mean, this is sort of, goes back to COVID too, when, the sorts of protocols and precautions and mandates that American citizens were subjected to, those breaking in or being invited to come to our country illegally by the Biden administration were not. I mean, of course. I mean, it's all of this stuff. I mean, look, we're still feeling the effects, and when you combine it with the state level legislation here, I mean, I'm sure Jeannie went over this, but I mean, just to mention it again because it can't be mentioned enough. a Muslim jihadist that was arrested here, arrested with Molotov cocktails and a map, an illegal immigrant from Jordan, released into the country by the Biden administration in March of 2024. Previously arrested in Chicago in 2025 for domestic battery and bonded out of jail. ICE lodged a detainer request after he was arrested, but Will County ignored it because, we're a sanctuary state, and then released him without notifying ICE. He was just taken into custody. The judge in question, too, because now we're talking about Will County. It's not just for Cook County anymore. Will County, the judge is a guy named Ted Jarz, Jarz, possessing bombs and a map of purported targets in Illinois, deemed inadmissible to our country twice, and yet he's here. So this is what we're still obviously picking up the pieces as fast as we can and addressing the infirmities inflicted upon this country by the previous administration. Stu in Barrington.
Hi, Dan. Ben Hogan used to warm up at Seminole in advance of the Masters, and he would he'd get somebody to play with him, and it was a $100 bet, and he never gave him the money, and he signed a personal check, and nobody ever cashed the check because then they had Ben Hogan's autograph.
Thanks for the call, Stu. Seminole's just a crazy special place. For those who've been in, that locker room, that men's locker room, is just incredible because, of course, Seminole has this famed member pro tournament, and so you have basically every important name in golf of the last 100 years is on that board, and so many great amateurs and stuff. It's just a special place, and the green and bunker complexes are out of this world. Tough. Sarah in Glenview.
Yeah, hi. It's fascinating. With all the nefarious contacts that Biden and son had with in Ukraine, Romania, China, Russia, et al., that the CIA and FBI didn't see fit to launch a parallel investigation into them.
Yes, it's very convenient, isn't it? But that's how obvious is it that this was all politically based, not law enforcement based, not national security based. It was, Lavrenti Beria. A watered down version of it. By the way, I did want to get this in too, just since we were talking about open borders. I'll tell you, nothing turns a old Trump supporter who was all for border enforcement into a Trump opponent when his sugar baby is on the deportation schedule. CBS Mornings did this hit piece on ICE, and they tracked down this 75-year-old named John Gannon, lifelong Republican. He's turned on Trump. But listen to the details.
I voted for Trump. I am saying that they are picking up law-abiding citizens. They're destroying families, jobs.
John Gannon is a 75-year-old businessman and lifelong Republican who supported President Trump in 2024.
I wouldn't do that again. Not after this fiasco.
His fiancée, 45-year-old Venezuelan immigrant Yasmin Suarez-Reyes, was detained by ICE at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston in late July.
8 ICE agents swarmed Jasmine and detained her, didn't tell us why, and rustled her off into a car.
When you saw that unfold, what went through your mind?
Well, I was just in total disbelief.
According to her immigration lawyer, Suarez-Reyes came to the U.S. legally in 2023 and later applied for asylum, a case that is still ongoing. But her underlying permission to be in the U.S. has lapsed.
Yeah, so she's here illegally, but I want my sugar baby here. Real compelling. Chuck and Delavan to close it out.
Hey, thanks for mentioning my band in high school, the villain of the COVID era. Hey, everybody get in their car right now and drive to the State Fair in Wisconsin. The D-Like Duo is playing there from 11 till 5. in at the knucklehead stage and get yourself a corn dog.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. It's now 9 o'clock, AM 560 WIND.
Main Street's losses are Wall Street's gains. I'm Dave Anthony. Fox News stocks are rising. The Nasdaq's up almost 200 points after a worse-than-expected hiring report that's eased concerns about a potential future interest rate hike.
The number of U.S. jobs declined by 23,000 in July. Economists were expecting an increase of more than 80,000 jobs last month. Also, May and June job creation was revised lower by 103,000. The unemployment rate declined to 4.1% in July, though that may reflect more people leaving the workforce.
Fox's Ginny Casola. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren reacted in a statement that President Trump's failing economic agenda is weakening the labor market. But the White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett just told Fox there is good in the report.
So the strength is what we've seen before: construction workers, manufacturing workers, and so on. The weakness in this number were really just two things: government workers and a sort of rebound from all the employment we got from the World Cup, because the World Cup was ending.
A vote